Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get started this morning, and the first thing we'll do, we'll have the invocation by Pastor Steve Childs of the Chartel Church of God. Afterwards, I'd like to ask Councilmember Meg Salyer to lead us in the flag salute. Please stand.
Our Father, we thank you for this beautiful day that you've given to us to live and to serve. We thank you, God, that of all the places we could live, that you've allowed us to live in this great city we call Oklahoma City. Father, I just lift up to you the leaders of this city today. I pray that you'll give them wisdom and discernment, that they might lead our people well. Father, I pray especially this morning that they'd remember why they chose to serve, and that the cause, Lord, for which they lead will outweigh the criticism that I know they sometimes receive. Father, let you guide them as they guide us. And Lord, tonight as a city, we also pray that you would give our Oklahoma City Thunder victory tonight over those heathen Los Angeles Lakers. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Childs. I think you hit the important part. To
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a proclamation this morning with Chief City and his associates, if he chooses to bring them. Come up here, please. And I'll ask the clerk to read the proclamation.
Whereas police officers make a valuable contribution to our community by serving and protecting our citizens, and whereas the dedication and desire of Oklahoma City police officers to preserve a peaceful quality of life for all citizens is their foremost goal. And whereas daily life-threatening hazards are an accepted requirement of the profession and most appreciated by the grateful public. And whereas certain events within the month of May lend themselves towards the positive recognition of Oklahoma City law enforcement personnel. Whereas the following activities are planned. May 1st is National Law Day. May 7th, Oklahoma City Police Department Awards Banquet. May 7th, Oklahoma City Police Department Memorial Service. May 7th, Oklahoma State Law Enforcement Memorial Service. May 7th through 15th is National Police Week. And May 15th, National Police Officers Memorial Day. Now, therefore, Mick Cornett, the Mayor of the City of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim the month of May 2010 as Police Appreciation Month in Oklahoma City, in recognition of the outstanding performance, service, and competence exhibited by the Oklahoma City police officers.
Bill, congratulations to you. And I think this is a great recognition of what's got to be the best police force in the entire country. They do an outstanding job. Our citizens appreciate your work. And this is just a small thing we can do to recognize the outstanding service your people provide.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and also thank the council. I want to thank the council and most importantly the community for support of our police department. Obviously, we wouldn't be the police department we are without the support of the community and the officers in the field on a daily basis out in the field doing the work to keep this community safe. This is for them. This is what it's all about, and I appreciate the support over the years and for recognizing us for this month. We have on the 7th at 2 o'clock, we will have our memorial service, and I would invite everybody to come at 2 o'clock. It's in front of the headquarters building to recognize those officers that have paid the supreme sacrifice, and we'd love to have you there. So thank you.
Bill, thank you, and congratulations again, and good luck, and we do appreciate you. Does anybody here like to make a comment? Okay, very good. Thank you all. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you all. I'd now like to convene the City Council meeting. And the first item on our agenda is a presentation by Jane Jenkins, President and CEO of Downtown OKC, on the activities of Downtown OKC. Jane, welcome to our meeting this morning.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I just sort of wanted to give you guys an update on what we've been doing in downtown Oklahoma City. I know that you're down here often and you can see what's happening, but I sort of wanted to kind of let you know what we're doing from an organizational standpoint, and more than anything else, to thank you and the City of Oklahoma City for your support for downtown Oklahoma City. We are proud to be a partner of the City of Oklahoma City and the Chamber of Commerce and all the things that we're trying to do to make downtown a world-class place. And so I just, again, I'm here today to sort of give you an update and try to work these slides and see what we can do. I actually started with this position about 13 months ago in March of 2009. Prior to my arrival, the city had commissioned, working with Progressive Urban Management Associates, a plan for renewal of the Business Improvement District downtown. Along with that, they decided that it was time for downtown Oklahoma City to sort of look at a strategic plan. So in partnership, they began the strategic planning process. Progressive Urban Management Associates, the firm that they hired to do this, is based out of Denver, Colorado. I was currently working in Boulder, Colorado, so when I was hired, it took me a few months to get here. I actually worked with Progressive Urban Management on the process prior to actually being here. I just sort of wanted to walk you through that. The first thing that they did, and they completed this in the fall of 2008, was an external environmental assessment. They did stakeholder roundtables, one-on-one interviews, an online survey, and a reconnaissance of the market. Can't do a strategic plan without knowing what the market and without knowing what your constituents are saying. The next step was to do an internal assessment. They did a workshop with the Business Improvement District Board, with the Board of Downtown Oklahoma City Incorporated. They did staff meetings, they looked at organizational documents, and they looked at a district database for the Business Improvement District. The next process was to work on the synthesis and the strategic plan, and this is sort of where I came into the picture, even though I was still in Colorado at the time, looking at program emphasis, organizational adjustments, staffing, budgets, the bid renewal plan, which is a totally separate document. We worked to clarify the relationships of downtown Oklahoma City with the city and the chamber and the CVB. I mean, this is really important because a lot of times it seems like we may be working on the same things. And it's important to recognize that each organization has a specific role to play in the job that we're doing for downtown Oklahoma City, and we're all dependent on the other. So this was a clarification of the role DOKC would play in downtown revitalization. And then we looked at ideas to improve DOKC's influence in advancing the development and the management of downtown Oklahoma City. And then step 4, which was actually completed in January of this year, was approval and the finalization of the bid renewal plan, and I'll talk a little bit more about where we are in that process. So what were the expectations when the city began this project for DOKC? They wanted to know how we can best champion downtown. I mean, this is really important. Every district, as you well know, you represent districts in Oklahoma City, needs a champion. We wanted to clarify our roles. Where can we best direct our resources? We do have limited resources. We're a nonprofit organization. We do contract with the city for management of the Business Improvement District, but we don't have very deep pockets. So how can we best utilize those resources? We needed to define our role in business support. Again, we have other organizations in Oklahoma City, and specifically in downtown, that provide business support. So what is our role in partnering with those organizations and providing support to them? How can we maintain consensus and, most importantly, build our influence? And then what's our roadmap? How are we going to get there? What are our goals, objectives, and measurements? 3 important things came out of this strategic plan, and that was the creation, even though some of them already existed, of 3 business centers for our organization. One was bid services. That's the Business Improvement District downtown. We have a relatively large Business Improvement District in terms of geography. And as part of that, and this comes from the consultant that worked on this, we are in the top 3 most complicated business improvement districts in the country. You know, our Business Improvement District is very complicated because of the sub-districts that we have. And by that I mean we have Bricktown, we have Automobile Alley, we have the Core, we have the Arts District. We're getting ready to add the Film Exchange District, and then a new district called the Plaza Court District that's in the northwest corner of the downtown. Midtown, another district, is not part of our Business Improvement District, but obviously we work closely with them because what happens in Midtown is important. We also have, we provide a number of services, and depending on where you are in the district and within the bid, you pay a different levy depending on the services you receive. So our bid is very, very complex, and so the plan to renew that bid took a long time. We finally got that plan approved in January. We do special events and marketing. Many of you are familiar with Downtown in December. That is our signature event that we do every year. We also have some upcoming events that we do throughout the course of the year. I'll talk about those a little bit. But we have a 501c3 nonprofit as part of our organizational toolbox that we want to develop as an event production company. And then this was new, community and business development. We sometimes put that under the umbrella of economic development. Well, it's really important for downtown, and DOKC had not played a really strong role with that. That had really been the City of Oklahoma City and the Chamber of Commerce. But as we are becoming a more critical piece of national economic development, the entire city really demands the focus, not just downtown, of the Chamber and the city on that. So it was important that we come in and provide a leadership role to support the City of Oklahoma City and the Chamber of Commerce in their economic development efforts, specifically in the downtown area. And so this was all about developing partnerships and developing leadership. Probably the most important thing that came out of the strategic plan was a reorganization of our staff, and we are in the process of implementing this right now. What we did was we basically created a vice president of operations. That position is filled. That sort of manages the ambassadors, which are city police department function, but we participate in that. Our clean team, our contracts that we do for Downtown in December, and then we have a part-time bookkeeper so that we, because of the complications of our bid, our finances are pretty complex also. And the new position that was created was a vice president of marketing and business development, and there are two staff positions that report to that vice president. One is a research and data coordinator, and we're still sort of defining that position. We want to work again closely with the chamber and the city to make sure, find out what the needs are in terms of research and data so that we can provide the best possible information. And then a marketing and events coordinator. I'd like to introduce Allison Shoemate, who's our marketing and events coordinator, who is helping me with the slides today. She's been a fabulous addition to our staff. She joined us in January. And I'm proud to say that we recently filled the position of Vice President for Marketing and Business Development. We just did a press release yesterday. Tom Verplugen will be joining us. His first day is May 7th. He's actually moving to Oklahoma City this weekend from Mesa, Arizona, where he has been the president and CEO of Downtown Mesa for the last 25 years. And is ready for a change and is coming to be our vice president, where he's moving. His wife is retiring. They're going to live downtown in the Park Harvey. And I can speak for Allison and Kathy and the rest of our staff that says we just can't wait for Tom to get here. we have a lot going on, and we're delighted that he's coming. Bid renewal. We are currently reviewing assessment calculations. Oklahoma City created the downtown bid in 2001. And it was like one of the first bids in the state. So let's just say that they did it, and as we review it for renewal, there's a lot of mistakes in our data. So it's taken us a little bit longer than we had anticipated since we approved the bid renewal plan to go back and get that assessment data correct. But we want it to be right. Since this is our second time to do it, we sort of learned from the first time, and that's the process. So we're about 2 months behind where our timeline originally was for doing the petitions. The petition should be ready within the next 30 days. Again, this is something we do in partnership with the city, and we will hold stakeholder meetings and get the petition signed. And so hopefully sometime in the next 3 to 4 months, we will be back for you with our petitions to get the bid renewed. Our original goal was to have it renewed by October 1st of 2010. There's still a chance that we'll make that deadline, but we're going to have to work real fast. I think probably a more realistic goal is January 1st of 2011. That we will have everything done and ready, for the council. Also, as part of that, we worked with the city legal department and the public policy department on changing the state legislation to allow more flexibility for business improvement districts, not just for Oklahoma City, but statewide. We've got some support from the Small Communities, the Main Street program, and that bill is proceeding through the legislature, right now. It has passed the House. It's in the Senate. They've made some changes to it, nothing that's really earth-shattering, and we look forward to having more flexibility with our business improvement district downtown in terms of how the districts can spend their money for small capital projects and things like signage and benches that previously it was kind of fuzzy on whether we could do that. Business development partnerships. This is our new business center. We're all about cooperation and collaboration. What we want to do is leverage the development that's already in progress or that's scheduled, and that would include things like the Devon project that you see the cranes out there that is currently in progress, and then the scheduled development such as the Sandridge project and then Project 180, which is scheduled to start in another month, which is our streetscape project, the building front to building front streetscape project. And then we want to be the catalyst for future development, including retail. Part of our strategic plans indicates that we will be a champion for downtown retail. I think that we will do that. I think that we will see retail start to turn around in the next 3 years. I do not think that we will see a whole lot of change in the retail situation during the time that we're undergoing Project 180 because of access to downtown. It just would not be the best time to do that. But we will be laying the groundwork, so once that project is completed, we will hopefully see more retail in downtown, in the core, and in Bricktown, and Automobile Alley, and the various districts we manage. These are some of the upcoming events that we have. I mean, we're known for downtown in December, but we do other things. Our Soundbites concert series starts next Friday. Not this Friday. It's Fridays in May and June. This will be out on Couch Kerr Park. We hope you will join us. Sandridge and the Skirvin have sponsored the series, and we have gotten various corporate entities to sponsor each Friday so that they will bring their employees out, provide us with an MC, giveaways. We're going to have some on-site food. It's going to be a little bit different than we've done it in the past, so we hope you will join us. Our Urban Lifestyles home tour will be May 8th. That is a week from Saturday, and again, it's a little bit different than we've done in the past. In the past, it's been an open house of available properties in downtown. This time, we're actually featuring 6 actual homes of people who live downtown from different demographics, from retirees to young singles to families, and that will be a ticketed event to be able to get in the actual homes of some folks downtown, as well as the open house, so we hope you'll join us there. The Dean A. McGee Awards are May 18th. This year we're honoring Bob Howard and the Chet Collier and the other guy, pardon me. Well, David Rainbold is the Dean A. McGee Award winner, but I can't, the Memorial Marathon. Thank you, Thomas Hill. So we've got some great honorees, and we are doing really well on ticket sales. We hope you'll tell all your friends to come. And then we have the Downtown Dash, which is a partnership that we do. It's a run that we do with St. Anthony. It will be June 5th. What makes this run unique of all runs in Oklahoma City is it actually happens in the evening. The run starts at 8 o'clock at night. And so it's really a nice time to do a run. Last year was the first year we did it. We were expecting 250 people. We had 800 people. So we're hoping that we get 1,000 this year. And then the last thing I wanted to tell you about is something that's happening this weekend in downtown Oklahoma City. It's the Power of Main Street. Main Street program started in Oklahoma in 1985. The first Main Street towns were announced in 1986. I was proud to be a manager in one of those first towns in Oklahoma. And so this year, for the first time ever, Oklahoma City is hosting the Main Street Conference, the National Main Street Conference. There will be more than 1,000 Main Street program leaders in attendance at this conference in downtown, at the Cox Center, and all over downtown. The conference starts on Sunday proper with an opening reception at the Cowboy Hall of Fame and goes through Wednesday afternoon. Main Street folks will start coming into town this Wednesday and Thursday. Architects, state coordinators from Main Street programs will have meetings on Friday and Saturday. And so this is a really great chance for us to show off what we've been doing in Oklahoma City to people that are in our profession, and I think we'll really get a good flavor for some of the accomplishments that we have made over the last 20 years. And I also wanted to echo the words of the invocation, not just in the invocation for the Thunder to win, which we are all hoping for, but to say that we are really privileged, and I am proud to live in such a great city as Oklahoma City. It's been a wonderful experience for me to live here. I feel like I am privileged to be able to work with the leaders that I'm working with, both at the city and the Chamber of Commerce and the other organizations. And I feel that what we're doing here is like something that isn't happening anywhere else in the country, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. And so thank you for your support, because we certainly could not do it without the support of our city leaders.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments about Jane's report? I'd just like to make one comment, essentially maybe two comments. In urban planning, a principle that's often espoused is there is no great city without a great downtown. And I think Oklahoma City is becoming living validity of that point. We're really showing it happen. And I had the opportunity to welcome a group of human resource professionals who are meeting in Oklahoma City this week from all over the country, a regional meeting, and the president of this region was from Greensboro, North Carolina, and she came into Oklahoma City the middle of last week to get ready for her conference. And she had NBA final here. She had the Red Hawks playing here. She had the Arts Festival going on. And then on Sunday, there were 22,000 people in short pants running around all over the city. And she said, when do people in Oklahoma City ever rest? There was so much going on downtown, and I think it's a real tribute to you, your efforts, Jane, and the efforts of so many people to make our downtown such a vibrant place. And it's got national recognition right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is to receive the Journal of Council Proceedings for April 20th, 2010, and approve the Journal of Council Proceedings for April 13th, 2010. Have a motion and second. Please cast your votes. And the item carries. Item 5 is a request for uncontested continuances.
Mayor, I have several this morning. If you start on page 15, under item 8E1, item G, 2301 North Jordan Avenue, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has removed. On to page 16, item O, 1526 Northeast 9th Street, we ask that that be stricken. We'll rework that as property maintenance. Item P, 1530 Northeast 9th Street. We ask that that be stricken. We want to rework that as property maintenance. Item Z, 1213 Southwest 23rd Street. We need to strike that and re-notify. Item double E, 1425 Southwest 31st Street. We need to strike that. The owner has removed. Moving to item 8F1, item E, 1110 Linwood Boulevard. We ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item F, 2112 North Lottie, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item G, 2123 North Lottie, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Moving to page 17, under item I, 1809 West Park Place, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item L, 1809 Northwest 8th Street, we ask that that be stricken to rework for additional violations. Item O, 2014 Northeast 12th Street. We ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item X, 409 Southwest 27th Street. We ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. And finally, item double A, 301 Northwest 82nd Street. We ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured.
Thank you. Are there any other requests for uncontested continuances? Okay, very good. Thank you. Now we'll recess the council meeting and reconvene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority, and we have 6 items.
Mayor, I'd like to have a question.
Excuse me. We have a motion made. Let's get motion made and seconded. Now we have a question.
Item B is the 2 clubhouses at the golf courses, and originally it was discussed that the clubhouse at Early One is actually going to be replaced. In this, it says renovated. Is that a semantic issue? Is that a substantive issue?
I don't know the answer to that. There's X amount of money that's allocated for those projects out of the GO bonds. We'll hire an architect, and I think he'll evaluate and see if the resources, what we can do with the resources available. The golf course has also talked about maybe doing some other things to add some resources to it, i.e. Increase golf fees to generate some revenue to supplement.
Okay, so if we vote on this today as it's read here with the word renovation in there, does that eliminate the possibility of building a new clubhouse?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all the question, but I believe
Basically, the question is item B on the clubhouse at Earlywine. Originally, the discussion was that clubhouse was going to be rebuilt because of the condition of the one that's there now.
the bond issue allows for rebuild or replace. The consultant will help us determine what's feasible with the money that we have.
Okay. So is a replacement out of the question?
I'm not saying it's out of the question, sir, but with the funds that are available, as you can read here, the Golf Commission has been giving some thought to revenue bonds that would be added with the GO bonds that would allow for more potential for replacement than we have alone.
Which actually brings me to the question at hand, which is, with the wording here in the Earlywine Golf Course Clubhouse renovation, does that eliminate the possibility of a new clubhouse, or does this need to be amended?
It doesn't eliminate that provision. This is just hiring an architect at this point in time who's going to evaluate the situation.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions relating to the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority agenda items? We have a motion made and seconded. Please cast your votes. The item passes. We'll adjourn the OCMFA and reconvene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. We have two items. We have a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on these two items? Cast your votes, and the item's carried. We'll adjourn the OCPPA and reconvene as the City Council meeting with the consent docket. Have a motion made and seconded. Are there individual considerations?
Mr. Vice Mayor, we do have a presentation for item J regarding the Ford Center.
Okay. We have the presentation, and then we can vote on the issues. Then the people who are going to make a presentation on the Ford Center project, item J, please come forward.
We have Ernest Joyner here this morning from St. Combs. We have Jim Reynolds from the Benham Group, and Wayne Corvell is here with the city. And Ernest is coming up. It's only supposed to be running a PowerPoint presentation, I assume. Ernest, is that the angst at this point?
I believe I'm slated to give the presentation today. This is related to some shortfalls that were in the sales tax collections for the Ford Center, and the Benham companies and St. Combs Deathless Architects team was charged with making revisions to the original design to have it fall within the available funds. So I'm going to give a short presentation about how we did that, and I'll just tell you that it was a collaborative effort between city staff, professional basketball club, the project team, and our goal in doing this was it was not something that we were going to achieve by just changing some carpets and doing some cosmetic things. These are pretty substantial cuts on the order of 10 to 15% of total project budget. So in doing that, our goals were to preserve the overall integrity and look of the project as much as possible, deliver what the citizens of Oklahoma City had voted for and been promised, and affect the program as little as possible. So some program elements were assessed and viewed to be not critical. Others were reduced in size. So I'll take you through that now. As we go through, I'm going to go through floor by floor. And in the lower left corner is the original design, and in the upper right corner is the revised design. The original design includes some things within the bowl there, so just the oval piece. Those have already been completed under Phase B, or most of those have already been completed under Phase B. And so they're not really under question. These are changes to the exterior addition, Phase C. So on this floor, there's really not a lot of change. I'll direct your attention to the southwest side. The areas that are shaded in red in the upper right image are where the changes were made. So we've taken off one bay there, 1,000 square feet. That's on every floor, and we'll go all the way up. Locker rooms and storage to remain. And you'll see a little notch there at the bottom right next to the loading dock where the at the end of the green bar, that is where there was an electrical transformer above that we saved almost $250,000 by keeping and making that notch. So that's the sort of thing we were trying to do, was how can we make these small tweaks and not have to rebuild infrastructure and achieve some savings that way. So moving up a level, this is the ground level. The big obvious change here is the elimination of the practice courts that were going to be built over the loading dock. These were not critical to Professional Basketball Club, as they have a separate off-site facility. And that was a very expensive and difficult part of the building to build. It was going to be cantilevered over the existing void that's in the dock. So that piece was eliminated in its entirety. Part of the wing next to that was also eliminated. And then again, the bay on the other end, the 1,000 square feet to the west. Most other things were kept intact. The kids' fun zone was reduced slightly in size, but the entry was pretty much maintained, the lobby and restaurants and the major stairs leading to the upper floors. On this level, we also see some pretty substantial change. The red, again, on the bottom of your image on the upper right, was originally a high-end restaurant or series of restaurants that would have been private rooms to rent. We worked with Professional Basketball Club and SMG and came up with a plan to renovate some existing restaurants and switch some of those functions around. And in doing so, we were able to eliminate the second floor of that part of the addition. There's a small exterior deck that we're looking at being able to keep there. And eliminating the in-bay, again, the 1,600 square feet. We did have to eliminate the roof deck over one of the north entries, and we again tried to replace that on the south side. The idea there is if we weren't touching that piece, that was going to be a total tear-off and replace, and it was more economical to keep that structure as it is. This is where you really start to see some change. The large, I'm going to jump ahead here just so when I talk about this, it'll make a little more sense in 3D. So the lower left is the original design. The upper right is the revised design. It's kind of hard to tell, but the upper right design is 1 story shorter. And we were able to achieve that mostly by filling in space that was previously open to below. And so you'll notice it's just a little bit shorter. I'm going to go back to that floor again. So that's went one too far there. Okay, so in the original design, in the lower left, all of that light blue white area was previously open to below, and you were so when you went up the stairs, you were looking into a 3-story lobby. And what we've done is we've actually filled in most of that floor plate. Professional Basketball Club under contract needs about 2 floors of office space. So basically, that floor has become Professional Basketball Club offices and is no longer open to below. So basically what that results in is instead of a 3.5-story entry lobby, there's a 2.5-story entry lobby, which will still be very dramatic, make a great impact, even much more so than any of the entries that are there now, but allows us to not substantially change the building and still maintain our program elements and what were required by contract. So going up a second floor, this floor maintained largely intact. This was previously the first floor of the Professional Basketball Club offices, which is now the second floor, and then going up one more floor, this was previously the second floor of the offices, which is now entirely eliminated. So once again, the building is a story shorter. Image we were looking at before, you can see that the main entry is a little bit shorter, the frame on the front is a little bit shorter, and then the wing on the right, in the original November 2009 image, you see where the canopies are. That was a 2-story piece with the luxury restaurant piece on top, and is now a 1-story piece with functions and kid zones below. A similar image. One of the things, as I said, that we tried to do was we felt like that frame piece that frames the entry was a really signified entry, brought a lot of excitement to the existing building, will one day, face onto the urban park that's planned for in the future. We felt like that was really important to keep. The southeast end, this is the biggest change in terms of looks. This is where the practice court was eliminated. So in the November 2009, you can see the practice court piece there that is now gone. You're looking over the loading dock. And then from this view, you know, it looks largely the same. There were three elements that we considered taking out. One was the brick pier, and one was the frame around the opening, the large lighted frame, and the third was the fins on some of the glass. We just felt like that those were architectural icons now that have been shown to the public, and people are expecting those, and we were able to pretty much keep all of that intact. And so that's our proposed package of improvements to keep us in available funds.
A couple things I want to add. What we have before us today is Phase B2. Phase B2 is a more moderate package. It is not this construction package of the whole thing. It's the next phase to do some improvements over the summer on some of the office areas and some of the areas on the concourse level. The large section, which will be, we call Phase B3, will be bid out late summer, and then that will be the big package to do this. What we've done here is had a situation where we had a 15-month sales tax, and that 15-month sales tax coincided with the absolutely bottom drop of our sales tax collections as we've gone forward. So we did not meet our projections on the sales tax revenue. And so what we've done is, I think, an excellent job of going in and managing the program and by modifying the things to make sure that we can build this within the revenues that are available. And when we take a look at the program, some of the other cost savings that we are plugging back into this were the savings we received on the practice facility, because we were able to acquire the property out there for much less money than what we had originally planned and had savings there, and the bids themselves for the practice facility that came under. So a combination of those type of things has been able to get this program back within the revenues available and still being able to provide, we think, almost the packages that will be there to make the team successful and make the Ford Center an improvement for the future. And again, I think really a good job of a coordinated effort and a cooperative effort between the team and our architectural staffs and the cities, understanding what we're trying to do and get the most bang for our bucks, and realizing that we collected the sales tax on this during a revenue shortfall.
I'd like to second what Jim said and compliment the staff who did the work, the architects, the consultants, and our own city staff. We made significant changes in a big project that will have minimal impact on the public, and I think they did a great job in that aspect. They kept the trust of the public as their foremost objective, to deliver what we had promised the public we would deliver.
And the functionality and the revenue streams that were important to the team.
Yeah. And so I think it's a real tribute to what they did, and I think we ought to be proud of their efforts. Any comments or questions?
Mayor, I have a couple. One, is the amount of money that we have to spend, is it fixed, or do we have one more collection? That I know we're now collecting money on MAPS 3, but have we received the money, all the money on MAPS for basketball?
No, and there will be some that trickles in even after. We'll get some over the course of the next year. There will be some adjustments and some late payments and stuff that come in.
But there's one big amount left, right? One month left plus the trickle you talk about.
That's correct.
Okay.
We've got a pretty good handle of where we're
understand. No, I understand. I'm just trying to make sure. That was just the question. I thought I knew the answer. The other question is one I almost hate to ask because I'm not sure I want to hear the answer. But since we've not been able to build the practice facility, had we known that earlier, would that have obviated the need to spend that money to bring the ramp straight down from the interstate?
No. That's a great question.
We're going to still use that somehow?
No, absolutely. The whole restaurant area is where that ramp had to be built. The whole south side extension is where actually that is not where the warm-up court was.
Okay.
That's on the east side.
Can you put that map back up here so I can see that better?
Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah. If you take a look at it, the critical part for the relocation of that ramp was on the southwest corner of the building.
Right.
Was where that came in. We had to pull that back.
Right.
The practice facility was actually on the south, or the warm-up court was on the southeast part, and that was not impacted by the ramp. It was this area that's being extended out for the restaurant.
Can you just bring that back up so I can
Yes.
satisfy myself?
Stop right there. I need
It's
to-
actually, it's shown there in the bottom left. On the bottom left corner, the bottom left image in the bottom left corner, that's actually the main entry, the big tall piece with the frame and the brick columns and the fins. It's facing southwest, and that's where what you're seeing in that bottom left image is actually the ramp realignment. And what that ramp used to do was cut that corner off. And so by squaring it and making it parallel to the interstate, we were able to open up that corner and allow the building to be extended to the southwest.
And we're sure we're going to get to it before the interstate comes down, which would have, again, obviated the need to have spent all that money to bring that ramp straight down to have it later torn down.
Absolutely. We'll be in construction this fall of 10. That won't come down until 13.
Okay.
So there's a three-year period on that. So no. And that's a pretty good picture. You can see where that ramp is, and it affects the restaurant area that is still being built at this time.
Okay. It'll be built before the interstate comes down.
We'll be building it under construction, sir, this fall.
All right. Okay.
The interstate will not come down until 13.
All right.
Larry?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. And Skip Kelly next.
Just since Pete brought up the revenue stream, the funding for the Ford Center and everything you were talking about here, and the money for the practice facility that is currently under construction, which will be completed late this fall, all that money comes from the MAPS tax for the Ford Center and the use tax for the Ford Center.
That's correct.
And there will be no money from MAPS 3 spent on this at all.
That's absolutely correct, sir.
And there has been some confusion in the past. Some people have said, well, that's how we're going to handle this shortfall. So there's no money from MAPS 3 being spent on the practice facility or the Ford Center.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Kelly?
Yeah. Based upon the modifications you've just presented, how much will this change in reference to the original projected dollar amount?
If I can answer that.
Yes.
We originally had a programmed amount on this at $120 million, and the new current estimate is $108.
That's a total
program,
for the whole
from
program.
120, 121 to 108.3.
Well, I have one other question. Go ahead if you probably your voice needs a rest anyway. So. Are our bid projections for this, do we take into account the much lower bids that we've got received on the practice facility?
This is a little bit different type project, so it isn't quite, but we do believe that our bid estimates are current with what the construction is.
They've been adjusted downward.
And by the way, we do have a contingency still left on this project.
Councilman Kelly.
One other question. We've been told for the last 6 or 7 months, almost a year, that the construction cost is down, the material cost is down, and I'm just trying to figure out then, does that have any interplay in reference to these cost projections that had to be modified, or are we still able to take advantage of the production, the material cost that is down now?
There's about a $5 million savings that we incorporated on the construction costs that we received on the practice facility. So that $5 million of savings is put in there. We also believe that our present construction estimate for the finishing out of this project is current with the present cost construction climate that we're seeing today, which is down somewhat. So we are, our revenues were down, our costs are down too, and we're taking that into consideration.
What's the biggest, the major component of the renovations that we had expected from the original rendering that's going to be eliminated now?
There's about 2 or 3 things. There's a warm-up court was probably the major thing that was over on the southeast corner that will not be there. and the rest of it is some changes of the shortening and narrowing of the restaurant area a little bit, as he showed in the renderings. That we're 1 story lower, and we've made some modifications in that. We've eliminated a little bit of the open space that was available. Those are the major changes.
Yeah, it was pretty much a haircut, so to speak. You know, the idea is that other than the gym, the warm-up court, as Jim mentioned, it was pushing and pulling here and there to achieve the savings, and it comes off of several different parts. I mean, from the views, that we were very happy, that this is the before and after. We feel like we were able to maintain the identity of the building, the excitement of the building, that sense of entry that modernizes a contemporary arena. And your team is amazing, what they've been able to do. And what you guys have been able to do, I mean, from bringing an NBA team in, 2 years ago, their second season, and to be where they are now, and to have this sort of vision, we feel like it's entirely intact.
I guess if I could just make a quick comment in participating on the trust in all these really difficult discussions. I think the team did a very sympathetic and excellent job in trying to get the program fulfilled, given the fact that there is, a very significant shortfall. And this wasn't a surprise. I think it's important to say that, we've watched these collections over the course of the 15 months and knew that there were going to be some significant challenges. And I think the team worked very diligently all the way along to try to value engineer the project. And I think we all would have wished we would have collected $121 million. But in this climate, I really want to compliment the work of the whole team for bringing this in to the best of our ability. And I think everybody's going to be really proud of it when it's finished.
Thank you from the whole team, because it was definitely a team effort.
Gary?
Well, one comment and then one question, and I'll reiterate again. Having sit in on the original negotiations with the Thunder Ball Club, I want to pass along a thank you to them, because it takes them understanding the revenue shortfall we had to buy into the changes in the project the way it is. And I think that we need to give them a thanks for understanding that and working towards it too. And it's not going to lessen the NBA experience. I know that there was a lot of discussion about the quality of the experience for the NBA, and the NBA is certainly aware of what's going on. And I think that again, applaud to everybody around for bringing that in. If I missed it, I apologize, but scheduling, are we not going to do anything this summer at all? Will it be next summer?
We are doing a project this summer. This is what we're doing right now, is we're putting project, what we're calling B2, out to bid today. And that includes, go over the scope of B2 if you would, Ernest.
Jim, you want to speak on that one?
This is Jim Reynolds. He's from the Benham Group.
Benham. Yeah, and you'll be looking at putting out voting on that today. But B2 is essentially, once it was determined that these renovations had to be made, we wanted to make sure to be able to gain as much time as we could by putting a project forth that would be able to be worked on and still have the arena open. So the scope of those projects are the renovation, upgrade of all of the concession areas. There were a few restroom areas left over that could not have been done in Phase A, so those will be completed in this edition. And then we took some areas for the arena management and their facilities, and those will be upgraded in this project phase.
But the bigger project will be Phase 2C, which will be let out later this summer.
Phase C will be later in the fall.
Yes. That'll be the big remaining.
Loading dock.
Yes.
Is in the first group that you're doing, or the next group? Because I understood whenever we start doing the loading dock area, you basically shut the Ford Center down.
Yes, the loading dock now is not going to be impacted because the warm-up court was directly above it, and so that has been deleted. So the impact on the dock is only to the effect that a contractor brings his materials in and out of the dock.
So we haven't shut SMG down for another summer from getting stuff in here. I guess that's where my question was leading.
We're not going to shut them down this summer.
We're not shutting down this summer.
This summer. Next summer, I think we may be shut
Correct.
down for a shorter period of time.
Correct.
Does the good news savings on the practice facility mean that that's A-okay?
Practice facility's in great shape.
So that project that was initially budgeted for 15 or 20 million with the savings on land is going to come in at 15 now?
No, we actually, the program on that is even less than that, Mr. Bowman. The bids on that were right around 10 to 11, closer to 11 million, I guess, on that was the actual bid. And the savings on the land and such, we're probably going to be coming in with the FF&E about $14 million on the practice facility.
The total.
Those savings, of course, will be rolled over into the court center, or to offset the revenue shortfall, however you want to look at it.
Any other questions or comments about the Ford Center project? Thank you very much. We appreciate your efforts. Okay, we're ready to vote. We have a motion made and second on the consent docket. Please,
Mayor, I want to make a quick comment on item F.
Item F.
3, this is an ABC in Ward 1, and it's just on for introduction today, but I want to let people know that this is not only, it's going into an area that we've had some problems with in years past, the Will Rogers area over there, and the person that's wanting to put this in, I have a concern about the one he has south and some of the activities around there. So I just want to alert the council, I'm going to be questioning this ABC when it comes up for adoption.
Which one is it?
This is F. F3, and it'd be set for hearing this morning. I think Councilman Mars wanted to alert people that it would be an item for some discussion and probably a little bit of controversy from the way he talks.
J2 is a traffic control improvement on Southwest 134th in Portland. This is a issue that the city worked with OG&E and also the state of Oklahoma on to get a light at a intersection that's heavily traveled, and there was a visual impairment by a very, very large utility tower. And so I just wanted to publicly thank OG&E and the state for working with us on that and getting this handled and getting that going.
Mayor, if I could, please, I just wanted to mention item 6W2.
6W2.
And that is an allocation out of our 2007 bond issue for the purchase of 2 paratransit vans for Metro Transit. And these are both, I think, 10 passenger seats and 2 wheelchair securement positions. And I just wanted to make the public aware that we were going ahead and purchasing 2 more of those vehicles.
Are there any other comments before we vote?
Yeah. Item K. Let me talk about AB first. I want Sam back in here if he can get back before I talk about K. AB is the ratification of the resolution, of a water trust resolution with regard to Sardis. There's been a lot of controversy and commentary recently on the situation between Oklahoma City and Lake Sardis. Frankly, I think to summarize Oklahoma City's position as briefly as I can is we've been at this a long time, years and years and years, contrary to what some of the things you see in the press. We've been at it for at least 15 years. We're moving forward, and we intend, at this point, with the support of the water utilities, the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, we intend for this to be made part of the Central Oklahoma water system. Some of the comments have been made about whether or not it deals fairly with water in other parts of the state, and frankly, given the state law, we're following the law, and it is very fair with regard to the way water is used otherwise. Water is a precious commodity, and we've done all the things that are necessary over a 15-year period to try to make sure that we're in a position to expand our system, and I think Jim or I, either one, could talk to anyone that had questions privately about where we are, but we feel very good about where we are in terms of what we've done, the due diligence we've done, and what the price we're paying and the benefit it is to the state of Oklahoma. and we're very comfortable with going forward. I just wanted to point that out since it has become kind of an issue in the papers recently.
Could I follow up on just 2 points? Mr. White, he's dead on, but one of the things we want to point out is that the Sardis application is not only for Oklahoma City, it's for Central Oklahoma, and we've been working in partnership with Moore and Midwest City and Edmond and Norman and all the way over down to Seminole and Shawnee and Chickasha and Canadian County folks, and to really come up with a regional solution to this, so it isn't just for Oklahoma City, it's for Central Oklahoma. And there's 2 items working right now. This is a water rights application. Water rights, which is the water, is appropriated by the state. The water is owned by the state of Oklahoma for the people of Oklahoma, and this is to get a share of that. That's a process that's going on. The other thing we're trying to do is to buy the water storage rights in Lake Sardis, and that's a federal repayment of an obligation. When they originally built the lake, the states entered into that contract, and they're looking for someone to take out their position so they can be paid off. And so we do have an offer that we've been discussing for many, many years to take care of that obligation for the state, and the state has some urgency about it because they have payments that are due on July 1 on that lake.
Oklahoma City and the Water Trust have, over time, been very careful to put ourselves in the position so that when this becomes available, and knowing there was going to be a cost to it, we're in a position to deal with that. One of the problems that have been raised concerning other entities is that we're the entity that is prepared, again, like I say, over a 15-year period to pay the money to pay for the lake itself, pay for the construction of the dam, and we stand ready to do that now. And that's different than most of the other entities that we hear talking about it. They want to try to put something together in 30 days, 60 days to do it, and we're ready to do it today.
Okay, item K.
Item K, I just want to make a comment on the sidewalk thing. I was, because I listened to my friend Councilman Bowman about the importance of sidewalks, I've been supportive in terms of my votes, but not so much supportive in terms of the emotion that Mr. Bowman has for sidewalks. As I have watched the sidewalks start to come up as a result of the way we've done it, I could not be more pleased with the addition of sidewalks in Oklahoma City. This area is an area that needs them very badly. The area in my ward, which in the Oak Cliff addition, needs sidewalks very badly, and this is going to provide those. And I want to take this opportunity to publicly say that how much I appreciate Sam's leadership in promoting sidewalks as part of our overall projects, because it is making a huge difference in neighborhoods that needed a boost, and sidewalks tend to be just that boost in some neighborhoods, and I appreciate it. I see them all over town. I've seen them in my ward. This is an example in my ward, but I appreciate very much your foresight in seeing that that's something that is a big thing for the urban part of the city. And I just want to say that publicly.
Okay, are we ready to vote now?
I have had two questions, Mayor, and I apologize. On
Item I?
Yes. I want to ask legal if they could clarify the issue on this quitclaim deed. As I read this, there was
I believe that was a repayment dealing with, I don't have it before me. Basically, it just releases the lien to the claim of the property on JRT Properties purchased the property in 2009. Resale was received, the county treasurer's deed. The quitclaim deed conveys the property based on the 2009 resale, and it just is asking for the quitclaim to be referred.
Was there a question, sir?
Yeah, I guess my question is that we had a $9,000 lien on the property.
Is it our
correct?
general CDBG loan?
Right.
That was done in 1985?
Right. And the owner, she died, her son failed to
Make the mortgage payments.
after assuming the obligations for
Yes.
payments. Obviously, the taxes wasn't paid on the property. Is that
Yes,
correct?
the individual came in and paid the taxes, and we just need to quit claim the deed over to him.
So we were made whole on the...
No, we were not made whole. It was defaulted, she's deceased, and the loan was not paid back. And they paid the back property taxes on it, took the property.
Well, on paying the property taxes, does that immediately extinguish the lien, the $9,000 lien that the city had on the property?
I can't answer that question. I'd have to defer to Rita on that one.
All right, Bob, and I apologize, but I see these as some of the problems that I have asked and have concerns as it relates to our loan program. And in all due respect to you, that's not your department, but it just seems kind of strange that if we have a $9,000 lien on real estate under these programs and money is never paid just because someone comes in and pays the delinquent real estate tax, they get the property free and clear of any previous lien.
That's correct. The resale sheriff's deed cancels out all previous liens against the property. The only way you can protect yourself against that is to go and pay in the amount of your lien and then get title to the property.
Well, how would we start protecting ourselves as opposed to just giving away $9,000 on these type of projects, or, as I understand it now, it could be more than $9,000? What would be necessary for the city to implement in order for us to have the protection when these people refuse to pay the loan or they die and their relatives assume the loan, they refuse to pay the loan, they refuse to pay the taxes, and ultimately some investor comes in and pays the delinquent taxes and walks away with a rehab property that the city of Oklahoma City has paid money for through federal funds, and we lose it.
Typically, it would be just like any other mortgage holder or lien holder. We would go in and bid on the property, the amount of what our lien is, and then if the person wants to pay that lien off, they can do that as a part of their purchase price, or we can get title to the property if our bid is the successful bid, bidding in our lien. We would have to go in and have the funds available to bid in the amount of our lien to take the property.
Well, I mean, is it possible for us to work on that as opposed to just having the property and investing the money in the property and having someone to come in and pay a very, very, very low amount compared to what our investment is and walk away with it?
We can look at that, Councilman. The question is whether or not we can use CDBG funds to go in and bid in on that property. We'll be glad to take a look at that.
Councilman Kelly had one other item, and Brian, we'll get back to you then.
I was just going to ask him about that.
Okay, this question, okay.
Dan, how often does this happen?
How often does it happen that...
Like this issue that Skip was talking about, how often does that happen?
It's not terribly frequent. It happens regularly, though. It's not a big... there are not a lot of these properties, but it is fairly regular.
And Skip, you had one other item you had a question on?
Well, just to close that, I really would appreciate it if we could have a study in reference to this matter, because I just don't believe that as much money that we give out of the CBDG funds, that we should be allowing any of this to happen at all.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. My other one is N, which is Ward 7 resurfacing projects, and I noticed that there are seven projects that are part of this change order? I think it's 7. Is that Dennis? And I just wanted to ask Dennis if are these major issues as it relates to the change order because of the cost of the materials?
No, I don't think it has to do with the cost of the materials. I believe it has to do with conditions that were found in the field that were unanticipated, and we get bids. Our bids include several different items of work, and the quantities when we bid the projects are estimated based on our best educated guess. When we get in the field, sometimes we have to use less quantity, sometimes we have to use more, and in this case we had to use more of some of the quantities of the that were included in the contract.
Okay. Well, on Northeast 36, and it's not on this list, but since it's such a rather new project, I thought you might be able to give me a little bit of insight. Will there be a continuation of the east resurfacing on Northeast 36 from Lincoln to Prospect?
You mean as a part of this project?
No, not necessarily this one, because it's not on this list, but I thought maybe you might be able to.
I'll be glad to find. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out.
Lincoln, 36th Street from Lincoln to Kelly was recently completed, right?
Just within the last...
yeah, from Lincoln to Kelly. So you're talking from Kelly to Prospect?
Well, I was talking about actually from Lincoln all the way to Prospect, but yes, from Kelly to Prospect.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
I'll find out about that and report back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I almost hate to ask this question. Are we ready to vote now? All right. Cast your ballots, and the items are approved. The next item on our agenda is the concurrence docket, excuse me. And there are several items. Are there any questions or comments on the concurrence docket? Is there any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the concurrence docket is passed. Next, item 8 on the agenda are items requiring individual votes, and we have several this morning. Item 8A is an ordinance on the final hearing recommended for approval. It deals with PC 10246, a tract of land south of Southwest 15th Street and west of Mustang Road from AA Agricultural. And EMH1 Manufactured Mobile Homes Subdivision and CUP 75 Community Unit Plan District to R1 Single Family. It's in Ward 3. Larry?
Thank you, Your Honor. Tim, if you'd come forward, if you just give the council a very brief overview synopsis of what's going on here.
Yes, sir. Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates on behalf of the applicants. This is somewhat of a housekeeping issue. This property originally was zoned under CUP, and part of it was actually developed north of this, the Section 1, under that CUP, and what should have happened was the zoning should have been changed. And so as part of our application for the plats, preliminary plat and final plats, the staff asked us to correct this and change the CUP zoning to straight R1.
Thank you, sir. Has anybody signed up? I've heard no objections. I move for approval.
Motion made and seconded. Please cast your votes. And the item is approved. Item 2, PUD 1408, 2700 Southeast 59th Street from R1 Single Family Residential and I2 Moderate Industrial District to PUD 1408 Plan Unit Development District, Ward 4. This was deferred from April 13th. Pete?
I'm sure there are people here to speak, and I think we just go ahead and listen to everybody. And go ahead.
Okay.
However you want to do it. You're the applicant.
I'm Robert Thompson here for the applicant. As you may recall, I was here 2 weeks ago, and I won't repeat all those comments except what I'd like to do is focus on the fact that this is a soil borrow, PUD only. And the soil borrow doesn't directly affect the operation or non-operation of the landfill itself. And I think most of the issues that were discussed previously and will be discussed probably again today based on correspondence have really to do with the operation of the landfill and not with the merits of this particular soil borrow. This soil borrow is necessary for us to remain in compliance with the operation of the landfill. The alternative would be that we'd have to haul dirt from off-site, which I don't think is desirable from anyone. We have met with planning staff, and I think planning staff and us are in agreement that we are in compliance with our prior PUDs, which were soil borrow PUDs. And we have worked at the request of Mr. White and the council with planning staff to try to further address issues concerning dust that might blow onto the neighbors to the north. In that meeting, we've reiterated what we have in the process of being installed as a water sprinkler system. It is a movable system that can move to the areas where work's being done, but more importantly, to the areas where trucks are moving back and forth. It's actually the trucks driving across the dirt that's fallen off the wheels of the truck that grinds that dust kind of into a fine dust that then becomes the dust that blows. Well, we're sprinkling that. In addition to that, staff has made us aware of a product that we've now incorporated, which basically is combined with water. It then essentially, for lack of my scientific knowledge, it makes the soil heavier so that it's less susceptible to blowing, and we're implementing that procedure as needed until such time as we can get the sprinkler system up and running. We have met all of the technical requirements that were passed conditionally by the Planning Commission. Staff's indicated to us that they've made their recommendation for approval, and we're available to answer any questions that you have.
Before I have any questions, I would just as soon hear from the other people that are signed up to speak.
We have 4 people signed up to speak this morning. David Haverty.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council, and also staff. My name is Michael Laird. I represent Rolling Hills Manufactured Homes, LLC. Appeared last time 2 weeks ago. I represent also with Steve Sherman, the owner of this facility. David Haverty is actually the general manager of this facility, and if we might, subject to your approval, sequence this a little bit differently and simply make a brief presentation to reiterate our position relative to the compliance with the existing PUDs, and then have Mr. Haverty come up very briefly and show you some, with the use of some pictorials here, just what we're talking about so you can get a better context.
Pete, do you have any problems? That's fine. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Why don't you just hand those out here? What are you giving us on the Bob, right? First and foremost, again, we reiterate the statements that were made and the positions taken in Mr. Sherman's letter of the 12th of April, just before the last City Council meeting, and also very respectfully take issue with what we believe are the staff's conclusions relative to current compliance with current PUDs. I agree with Mr. Thompson. The things we're going to bring up here relate to the operation of the landfill, but also have an impact on whether or not this current PUD 1408 should be approved in light of the noncompliance. And that's the key issue that we have here. Here are the basic 4 areas we have contentions with. First of all, there's a clear 75-foot setback in PUD 970, the existing one, for the soil borough to the south. We believe, and Mr. Haverty will point out pictorially, that that has been violated already. We're not talking about the seeding once the borough has been completed and the landscaping in that area. It's closer than 75 feet to the property line of our client. The second thing, and this is not something that we believe is post-completion of the borough site under 970, that 2 rows of trees need to be planted 6 foot tall at a minimum in that 75-foot strip. Now, you might recall when we were here before, we pointed out the fact that, as we understand it, there are currently plans to have OG&E run a power line right up above that 75-foot area, which will mean they'll be unable to comply with the tree requirements because they'll have to clear cut those beneath the power lines, which makes sense. The third thing is, with respect to the pitch of the sides of the borough, they need to be 3 to 1 when we show some of the pictures, and Mr. Haverty will point out, right now some of those are 1-to-1. Now, granted, the 3-to-1 has to be done after the borough is complete in 970. But when you think about it, there's some disconnect here, because that would mean if there's a 1-to-1 there now, they'd have to bring dirt back in to the Soul Borough to create a 3-to-1 pitch, ultimately. The last thing is, and I will admit, this is actually a requirement contained in the current 1408, but I think this will point out how there's a lack of a comprehensive understanding of how this entire facility operates. There are different rules for different places, and they conflict. There's a huge pit of water out there you can see in 970. Now, 970 does not have a specific requirement that you pump that out. If you look at 1408, which is the current one, it requires to the north that the soil bore be pumped out periodically. Now, it strikes us as a bit interesting, to say the least, that you'll have one soil bore you have to pump out, the other one you don't. The larger one, actually, you don't have to pump out. Again, pointing out there's a lack of cohesion with respect to these different PUDs, all for essentially the same operation. Now, as I mentioned, David Haverty is the general manager of Rolling Hills Estates. He has been the manager for a year. He does not live there. He lives at a sister facility, which is Forest Park Estates, about a mile away, common ownership. But he's there every day and has been there every day for the past year. He, above anybody else, has a good sense of what it is like to be out there. And what I'd like to do is bring him up here, and a few things about the pictorials you have. First of all, the cover page points out where Mr. Haverty was standing when he took the photographs that are identified behind it. The second thing also, this is actually a pictorial from the original application, which actually shows two subject properties. As we pointed out last time we were here, the west property, which was right up against Rolling Hills Estates, has actually been withdrawn by the applicant from this particular PUD, but it remains in this picture. After he presents a very brief explanation of the photographs, Steve, I, or Mr. Haverty would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Haverty, if you would please give us your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is David Haverty. I'm the general manager of Rolling Hills Mobile Home Community. My actual address is 4800 South Foster, Oklahoma City, which is Forest Park Estates.
Thank you.
The sister park. The pictures are pretty self-explanatory. I actually went over and took pictures. I measured, since we measure lots all the time, we have equipment that does that. And I went over and actually measured from our fence line to the edge of the borrow pit that is part of PUD 970. And it is 65 feet. Now, that is not our property line. Our property line is a little farther past that fence line. So I can't tell you exactly how far it is, but it is under the 75-foot marker. I would take a little issue about the dust only coming from the roads because they have big equipment that digs this borrow pit out, and track hose and caterpillars, and they create dust also. But the picture, and I realize that it is not part of the original PUD, but the picture of the standing water, oops, I'm sorry. The picture of the standing water with the trash in it is what to me it's about a quality of life of the people that live there, of the things that the water might contain, and mosquitoes and all of that. So just briefly, we don't believe that it's in compliance, and I'll let the attorneys address that. But the fact that it is less than the 75 feet, and the fact that there is no vegetation of any kind as far as trees and shrubbery and things like that.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, the next person to sign up was Steve Sherman.
To rezone this from an R1 to an I2 with all of the homes right next door to it, the preclusion of having a site barrier or the trees planted from the prior PUD 970 that will be caused by the relocation of OG&E lines, which attached to my April 12th letter is a letter from OG&E stating clearly that they'll have to clear cut. And then there is a general concern among the residents and the owner of the community, of course, that number one, the quality of life goes down. Number two, as a property value is decreased significantly because of the sort of creep, if you will, of the landfill. And the present municipal code, if I read it correctly, requires a 1,500-foot buffer before you have any activity of a landfill, 1,500 feet from any occupied residence. I recognize that that may not apply to this particular landfill because this is existing and that would only be to new landfills, but it does demonstrate the wisdom of the code, and to juxtapose that against the current situation I think is very meaningful. So.
And we have one other person signed up to speak. Mary, is it Sanford? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward, Mary. Would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Mary Satterfield, 5908 Empire Boulevard. I'm just north of where they want to take out that dirt. And I don't think they should because it blows over on us. After I left this meeting, the 13th, I called Mr. White, and you couldn't even see a block down the street for the dirt in our area. And I think for once, y'all should be for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Pete?
I went to the area again. Ms. Satterfield called and left a message about that. I went to the area, and she's right. That very day, the dust was just would have been unbearable to have lived there. And I appreciate you calling me and let me advise me when that was happening. Part of the problem is some of the concerns we have about dust really don't affect this particular PUD application. They are concerns about the operation of the facility as it presently exists without regard to this. I would agree that there's no way this facility could be re-permitted at this location if the application came in today, but I suspect that's true about most facilities in most places. I would want to restate something I said earlier, and that is that given the nature of this business and the problems that are generated by operating a business like this in a location like Oklahoma City with the strong winds that we have, I think they do a very credible job and have been as responsive as one might imagine to concerns we have. That doesn't mean that all the people that have concerns about it are satisfied. And it doesn't mean I'm satisfied. You and I have met before, Bob, and have been at my office about it. And I guess I'm reluctantly going to be in support of this today. And I don't mean reluctantly. I recognize this is not a comment on the corporate responsibility of the people running this facility. It's a very, very hard job. We all need it to dig this pit. I've tried to look at, it is going to generate more dust, but are we better off with that than we are hauling dirt in from another location? Is that the better deal? The damage that would do to the roads, that's going to be just as much dirt involved there because you're going to be dumping that dirt and that's going to blow. It's very much a catch-22. The questions that Mr. Laird raises, however, do concern me a little bit more, and they are questions concerning the current operation of the facility. And those I find troubling. If in fact the current PUD cannot be complied with because of the OG&E line, I would like some assurance that the facility is going to come back in and try to show us what they're going to do. Either they're going to move the end of that ditch out from under the OG&E's line, or some way to buffer that. I know that would be expensive, and it may make this ditch smaller, And it may be that we ought to address it here by reducing the length of the ditch. But somehow, if in fact these all are true, and first of all, you and I haven't talked about this, Bob, and I've only seen this, but I don't have any reason. I know Mr. Laird, and I don't have any reason to believe this is not true. I mean, I have every reason to believe that if these photographs are like he says they are, some of them are disturbing when you see trash in the pit and water in the pit. I mean, the combination of water and trash is not a good thing if you're going to have to live anywhere close to it. I mean, not just 100 feet or 200 feet, but 1,500 or 2,000 feet from it. That's not a good thing. So somehow we've got to, again, I want to emphasize, I think under the circumstances, your clients do a really good job. But I guess what I am saying is they're going to have to do a better one. It's just, if I were Ms. Satterwhite and lived in that neighborhood, I don't know what I'd do. She does what she thinks is the right thing to do by calling me, and I hope that me standing up for her makes it worth the time that she spends calling me and talking to me about it. But I wish there was a way to fix both problems. I wish there was a way I could solve her problem and solve Oklahoma City's problem to dispose of trash. But I'm afraid there's not such an animal out there.
Well, just to address a couple of issues for Councilor Mr. White, we are aware that dust is a problem. That's why we've invested $300,000 in this movable sprinkler system, which is soon to be constructed, and I think will be a substantial aid in this area. It will be utilized. It's much like the agricultural sprinklers you see out on farms, sprinkling farm crops. It's a movable, rotating sprinkler that will settle the dust as needed, particularly in the windy areas and the days when the trucks are moving. We think we can settle a whole lot of that dust, and that's our goal. And it's the management's goal. And then one of the reasons it's made movable is so that we can follow the activity and sprinkle whatever area might be generating dust. And we want to address that. We're very aware. The manager has visited on many occasions with this lady trying to see if there's ways we can be helpful. And we do want to be good corporate citizens, and we are working on that. We've made a substantial investment. I want to address the OG&E issue, which I think is a non-issue. The OG&E line was a proposal, and OG&E approached the folks to see if they would be willing to have the OG&E line moved over onto them. That hadn't been approved, and at this point there is no moving of the OG&E line. There will not be any cutting of the required trees to accommodate the OG&E line. And the OG&E line doesn't affect directly the PUD that's before you. And one other issue I want to address that's in that photo, it actually deals with two PUDs prior. That is, it was discovered that the excavation, and maybe the error was created by the fact of the fence that separates it not being on the property line, and because if you add that in, it's real close to the 75 feet. And so it was discovered during the 970 completion, which was here, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, that prior PUD had been over-excavated. And so 970 provides and requires that before we finish 970, that we're required to go back and replace that soil and that slope to restore the 75 feet barrier. And that's part of that requirement in 970, and will be complied with. And we have actually, on terms of trees, we've put in larger and taller trees than the staff originally required, because we do want to have good screening. We do want to be a good neighbor and a good corporate citizen. So we believe that we have complied. The water is runoff water. In 970, it's rainwater that accumulates there, and actually that rainwater is part of what's pumped with portable pumps to provide the sprinkling. And the reason that the current PUD that's before you today provides the water we pumped out is because it's up closer to 59th Street, and so that water will be moved out of that area and moved back, and either will be eliminated through sprinkling or be pumped eventually back to the sediment pond that exists back to the southwest portion of the property.
Let me ask a question of either one of you of this first photograph, this photograph A, facing east from Rolling Hills Mobile Home Park property line, looking toward this 970 borough area. Are there not trees required on this area that should be between the Rolling Hills' property line and the edge of the borough? Aren't there trees? Shouldn't there be trees there?
There are trees. They don't show in this photo. The trees are actually up beyond where that photo shows, up in this area. And
show me where?
Up kind of where that letter D is, up in that area up in there. Doesn't show up in this photo. They don't. Up in here. But we're required to, and that's a different PUD, but we're required to and will install trees in every area where the PUD is required.
Well, I guess I don't understand. If that arrow is even close to right, representing 50 feet vertically, then I can't imagine why I wouldn't be able to see a tree to the one side or the other of it.
Well, if you'll refer to photo F, that is standing right at the edge of the borrow pit looking back towards the mobile home park due west. And the tree you see there is not a tree that was planted. That tree has been there for a while and was not planted by the landfill. It is just there, but it is one of the only trees, and if you'll look north and south of standing there are no trees shielding the park. Yeah, the photo B. That's looking north.
In photo A, approximately.
Again, I recognize that some of these don't have to do with this PUD. I understand that.
Yeah, correct.
But non-compliance with previous ones, I think, weigh heavily on any surrounding property owner's view about what we ought to do about this one. So I recognize it may not be part of what we're dealing with today, but I can't escape the feeling that if the other one isn't being complied with, and we're talking about generating more dust and so forth, that we ought to be looking at that in terms of what we ought to do. And also, if this borrow pit is too close to that fence, then it ought to be shortened also.
That's absolutely correct, and that's what 970 addresses. That this shortfall and the lack of the trees there is a result of the over-excavation that is addressed in 970. And I think staff will concur that we are in compliance with that and that we have to have that tree line up before we finish 970, because we have to restore the soil there to widen that area and then plant the trees there in the area where the widening will occur.
Let me ask you, if this is approved today, could we have, and to some extent staff would have to answer this for me, could we require the owner-operator to come back in a year and in a public forum show that they're in compliance with all the things that we're talking about? I tell you, I'm torn about this. I really am, Bob, because it is not easy. I recognize we need to get rid of trash. I mean, there's no question about it. I think this is not the appropriate way to do it, but nobody's willing to step up and do the recycling kinds of things that would reduce this problem right now. But so as a practical matter, I'm faced with: are we going to elevate the cost tremendously of getting rid of trash? Or am I going to let it go? And to some extent, people like Ms. Satterfield are going to bear the burden for that. But she's going to bear that burden anyway. She lives there, and there's nothing I can do to fix that.
Well, we're more than willing.
Except there is something you can do to fix it, and you can urge your clients to be even more responsive to her concerns. You know, I've had a problem to the east of you, about a mile, with New Dominion Oil Company. They had a well blowout, and it sprayed oil all over a neighborhood or two over there to the east of this landfill. They were in that neighborhood the next day, and they literally washed everybody's house in the neighborhood. Now, I'm not saying that's what you ought to go wash everybody's house in the neighborhood, But before I even had an opportunity to find out about it, they were in that neighborhood washing cars, washing houses, and that has happened once in the 5 years I've been on the council. This dust problem happens every day. And so somehow or other, we got to, I know that's a cost of doing business, but at some point in time, it's going to be reflected in your rate, I would hope. You've got a rate base that you can elevate by additional cost. Somehow we got to find a way to mitigate the impact on these people that are trying to operate a residential facility to your west and people that have lived to your north for 75 years, those houses, at least, maybe longer than that, maybe 80 years some of those houses have been there to the north. So,
make a suggestion. You're helping me by separating the concerns about violations or compliance with the current operation and what's before us today. If we move forward on what's before us today, rather than wait on a year, could we not ask staff, because we're hearing, we're in compliance, we're not in compliance for the current operations, could we hear from staff, and maybe DOE as well ought to weigh in on this, and say 30 days as to what the state of affairs is, and then council at that point determine what's a reasonable time. It may be shorter than a year that the compliance is met.
Well, we're certainly willing to do that as the applicant, and we believe we are in compliance because 970 requires us to do just what you just suggested.
If I might make a point, I'm sorry, you finished, Bob? Is in terms of timing, just two things. Bob mentioned that 970 was to fix a compliance issue with respect to the previous PUD, and I accept that at face value, and I think that's right. That was 6 years ago. If you're going to fix compliance, they've had 6 years. If we're right about how we interpret the requirements, that 75-foot buffer, for instance, they've had 6 years to get that done and put trees in there. They haven't done that. I realize giving them another year is one way to approach this. But, and let me read on the 75-foot, because this is critical. I think this is where we probably differ from the staff most. There are two specific references, and I want to quote them here. And by the way, this is from the Special Development Regulations of 970, the 2004 PUD. The landscape buffer along the eastern, western, and northern boundary of the PUD shall be a minimum of 75 feet in width, period. Not after the soil borough is completely evacuated. Now, second thing, 8.3.3, under special provisions, no excavation, stockpiling of material, or accessory or incidental use of the mining excavation operation shall be permitted within 75 feet of any property line, street, right-of-way, or public drainage or utility easement. Another one, not conditioned upon when it's done. It's when it's in compliance. And perhaps most telling, and this is the narrative from the applicant, same one we've got here. This is the development sequence, so it's how they want to approach this. Here it is. As shown in Figure 1-I-2, Oklahoma City Landfill LLC plans to fill the 75-foot buffer zone on the west side while developing PUD 970 area, while developing PUD 970 area. 6 years.
Pete, Councilman Walters has a question or comment.
On photo F, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding this. This is what it says, but I want to make sure that you're standing at the west edge of the current pit, facing west, and you are looking at your community, right?
I am. Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, basically what you're saying is there should be trees there as a visual buffer to the. Okay. There's been a lot of discussion over the things that they can do. The problem I have is that this fence that's shown in this picture, that's your fence.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, you're here complaining about what you can see, but if you had an adequate fence there, that would also help. And my guess is that if we looked at the zoning governing your property, there's probably some discussion as to a fence on your property. Is that correct?
No, there are no requirements to have a fence.
Okay. All right, so there's no requirements. But obviously somebody who had this or operated it thought that it was important to have one because there's a single panel up here. So while we are putting the burden on them to comply with their PUD, I would also think that it would be in the best interest of your neighbors, or of your renters, that there also be a fence there, not only for visual screening, but also as to keep people from coming into that property. So while they have a lot of work to do, just from this picture alone, it's to me it's a little self-incriminating on your part that I'll just be frank with you. What it does is it calls into question this idea that you're complaining so much about what you see when the quality of the fence is in the condition that it is here. To me, I'm looking at, well, maybe they're not quite as serious about their community as they think, because you have a fence falling down, you have at least, it looks like 40 feet of missing fence there, you got one panel just hanging out there by itself. So, I have a problem with that. Maybe you need to look into that as well.
Gary, and then Meg.
Well, I'm trying to work through the conversations about 970 and now the current 1408, Pete, as you said, trying to decide what's going on here. You keep using the term 970 will fix that. And when you say fix that, you're talking about refilling an area to meet the 75-foot requirement in the landscape. That's
correct.
Well, that was required in 970, not that 970 is going to fix it. Where are you going to get the dirt to fill in to make the 75-foot? Is that going to have to come from 1480?
Well, it'll either be from 1480 or the remaining portion of 970, which isn't completely worked out yet. So it's going to be a question of moving dirt from one area to another.
Okay.
It's not going to come from external unless we don't have any dirt left to use.
Well, if you can pull from existing 970 to create the 75-foot, does that mean that you're not going to start working, if approved, that you're not going to start working in 1408 until 970 is fully complied with? Or are you going to have both of them going on at the same time?
They'll probably be both going at the same time. However, we're very well aware that we have to refill that and that we have to plant the line of trees in the line of fill. Because we have to have the dirt in order to meet your requirements and the requirements of the DEQ. That's part of our operation. We can't operate the landfill if we don't.
So are you saying that you don't have enough dirt left in 970 to fully comply with 970 before you start 1480?
No, we do have enough dirt there. And so both the refilling operation and the soil excavation to meet the needs of the landfill will be occurring simultaneously. But if we had to, we could fill all of the requirement of that 970 from the 970 dirt. But we also at the same time need to start taking dirt out of 1408 in order to put on the landfill.
So in actuality, my answer is 970 doesn't have enough dirt to comply with 970 and continue the landfill operation.
Yes, sir. This is...
I'm sorry, my name is Carl Evans.
Do we have your address also, Mr. Evans, for the record, please?
My address is 2292 Northwest 33rd, Newcastle, Oklahoma. What Bob said about the west side is correct. We found that we had a problem on the west side, and when we did 970, we addressed that in it that would need to be fixed. The way I understand it, and I'm not an attorney, is that it has to be fixed before we're done. Now, if the council feels like that I need to do that, or we as a company need to do that in a very short period of time, we're more than willing to do that. We also have a borrow pit that's already been approved further to the east, and looks like 1146 that we're borrowing out of currently. So if you're concerned about us coming up with enough dirt to make sure that 75-foot goes back right, there shouldn't be any concern of that. We have enough soil to do that.
I don't know whether Councilman White wants to deal with making it a condition, but I would certainly, if we don't make it a condition, I would encourage you to fix the problems in 970 that these people have addressed before you start pulling out in 1480.
Megan?
I guess I'm slightly going in a different direction because I'm very sympathetic to this problem in the neighborhood. But if I could narrow back down to the specific issue we have, you need to move dirt.
That's correct.
and you need to move dirt, I think we only have one of two alternatives to do it. You either have to borrow it, or you're going to have to get it from off-site to bring it in.
That's
Is that correct? And I guess one of my biggest fears for the neighbors is having to truck stuff in. I'm really concerned that it is almost a worse problem than moving the dirt. And I would like to echo everybody's comments around the horseshoe here, that I think there are a number of things that you all can do to improve the quality of life for these neighbors. And I am a real stickler for compliance on these kinds of things. And so please, sooner rather than later, bring yourself into compliance. But I think the neighbors are potentially facing a real problem if we have to bring in big trucks. So I'm very conflicted on how to deal with this.
Skip. Mr. Laird and Mr. Sherman, in your opinion, what would be the answer? It's obvious that this is a landfill that's been in existence. It's licensed and with permits from the city of Oklahoma City. And so it seems like to me that it has to exist for the purpose in which it's there for. Citizens were there, I don't know, before or after the landfill. But given the fact that it is a necessary operation for a particular purpose for the city of Oklahoma City, and in light of your concern as it relates to your citizens, the residents there, what would be your suggestion to solve all of this issue? Just to see if there's a way to compromise this from your perspective to the ownership, that this matter could be resolved. I just wanted to see if you all have an answer.
Very fair question, Councilman, and I'll answer it. First of all, before I do that, I agree with you, and our client agrees. This is a necessary societal function that has to be somewhere. There's no doubt about that. And you're right, it's been there for a long time, and it serves a very valid purpose. The sole reason for our objecting is we take the position that 1408 should not be approved until 970 is complied with. Now, the question is, how is 970 complied with? There's a difference of opinion, I'm sure, between Mr. Thompson, us, and staff. There certainly seems to be, based upon Mr. Couch's memorandum of last week. But I think it's clear in my mind, it is clear in my mind, that the way to fix this is to require compliance and verified compliance with 970, and then let's talk about 1408.
Well, is it Mr. Howard?
Thompson.
Mr. Thompson, I apologize. How long would it take for the company to comply with 970?
We can get it done in within 90 to 120 days if we have to. We'd like to take it a little more orderly, a little longer time, and then get in compliance. But if push came to shove, we could get that done. It affects our internal operation. But I think the two should be separated. I think 1408 should be approved, and that 970 should be dealt with on its own, and we can get that in compliance certainly within 120 days.
Well, but this is where I'm kind of, and I appreciate the insight that Councilman White has given us on this, and I'm truly I surely understand the concerns of this little lady that, and Councilman White came back last week and he told me that he drove out there and he said those people's cars and their homes was actually covered with dirt from the wind from that facility. Now, it would seem like that if all they're asking for is to bring 970 into compliance, and you're saying that it would take you 90 to 120 days, I would think that in light of what these people have suffered for the long period of time that they've had to endure with this, that there should be some compassion given to you from your company that would seem like that, okay, we know that this is a problem. It's a necessary issue that has to be addressed. Why can't you at least give them a little bit of satisfaction of saying, we did what you asked us to do, and not just because it was a personal thing. We did it because it was a city compliance, it's a DEQ compliance, and it was asked of your company, some time ago. And I would just think that we're sitting here fighting over trash that has to be dealt with. It is a natural part of what we have to dispose of in the city. You got a good company, and these are obviously good people who are here and have presented a very well-organized, presentation in reference to their position, and so have you on both occasions. I just think that, if that's the time that you could get this matter in compliance, then we should be able to move forward with this. And what's 90 Day going to do to your company? And I don't know, but financially it may be more of a hardship than it sounds like. But I just think that it seems like that if Councilman White has given as much time that he's given in reference to addressing this issue, and we as the council are trying to find a happy medium for everyone in this case, that at least there should be some movement on behalf of the company.
Well, and we recognize that, and it would be a hardship to delay 1408, but we're certainly willing to work with staff and make it a requirement that we get that buffer area restored within 120 days, period. We get that done as a part of 970, and because 970 requires us to get it done before we finish 970, we'll simply move up that timetable and get it done within 120 days.
Now, my other question, are you saying that the buffer, we're talking about the trees?
Well, the buffer is the 75-foot wide soil strip, which is short about 20 feet, and that has to be restored by replacing soil, and then the trees will be planted right along the edge of that line, about, say 50 feet from the line, so that the trees will be right in the edge of where we start restoring soil.
Now, of course, that brings another question about the trees. Of course, obviously you're not talking about planting seedlings.
No, there'll be 3-inch trees 15 foot tall that are moved in for that purpose.
They'll be moved in?
Yes, as they were on other places and the other PUDs. And that's larger than staff require, but that's what we believe is the most feasible.
And what kind of trees will they be?
It specifies in the PUD they're for the most part, but there's the variety of trees specified that staff has approved and determined as appropriate for screening that are provided for in the PUD.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, Brian, you've got a comment there. I'm going to ask Pete to sort of sum things up and give us some direction as to how he would like to go.
Okay, these gentlemen are arguing that the 970 is not in compliance, correct? Okay. How does being out of compliance of 970 put more dust on the neighbors to the north?
Zero.
Okay, so they're arguing a point that doesn't affect the lady that spoke a minute ago.
That is correct.
Okay. So if we're dealing with the dust issue is one thing, the out of compliance is something else, but somehow we've tried to tie them together.
Well, some of us have. Some of us have not.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure that I don't, because I don't think it's the issue. So what we're voting on today is a soil borrow. Pete's issue is the dust, which has absolutely nothing to do with the compliance of 970.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
But the non-compliance does speak to kind of how this whole operation runs, and I do think,
I agree.
With all respect, I do think they're linked.
And we more than want to correct 970. We became aware of it. We've been addressing it. We have plans to address it, and we fully intend. And staff will require it. I mean, just the fact, if we ignore it, staff isn't going to ignore it. But I think staff's in agreement that as of now, we're in compliance, and that we're moving towards correcting what was a mistake committed many years ago.
Okay, I hate to move or cut anybody off, but I do think we need to move forward. Pete, if you could sum things up in your viewpoint and give us some direction as to where you want to go.
Actually, the bigger thing with regard to the dust problem is something that's not included in 970 or this thing. It's this new equipment that you're buying that's not required by either one of these.
1408 does require us to deal with the dust, and that's the way we've represented to staff that we are doing it as a technical requirement.
So the purchase of this equipment is part of 1408.
That is correct.
Okay. Here's what I think the best thing to do is. I've got to say one more thing about this company. When I had a problem, and they have the misfortune of being on my way to work every day. So every day I get a chance, at least twice a day, to observe how well or how poorly they operate their facility. And when the problem became very severe with regard to trash blowing out of it, I contacted them, and you would have thought they would have hired an army of ants to clean it up. I mean, they were everywhere cleaning it up. And since that time, they have done as good a job as possible, given Oklahoma winds, of keeping that trash free. In fact, it's to the point that I've decided that the bulk of the trash now is not a result of trash blowing out of the site. It's the trash that blows off the trucks that are taking the stuff to the site. That's where the bigger part of the current trash problem is. That mainly occurs to the south of the facility as opposed to the north facility. So given that, and given the fact that I've had a good working relationship with them in terms of them complying with things as when problems have been pointed out to them, I'm going to move approval of 1408 today, with the caveat that within 120 days all the compliance problems will be resolved, and that I'm going to ask staff to monitor that to be sure they are, and that's with regard to 1408 and with regard to 970 and any other compliance problems that are out there. I want to report back at the end of 120 days that all that's been done.
Well, the applicant accepts that condition.
I do think it is, although they are separate, I don't think, again, I disagree with Councilman Walters in that we cannot ignore the problem, because one of these, a landfill is a problem, period. End of conversation. It is a problem. Anyone that, Skip has one, I think, Larry has one, they're problematic. There's no question about it. They're difficult. So I think one of the things we can do as making sure that the council does what it's supposed to do is we can make sure that you're doing what you promised to do in the thing. I'd also like within that 120 days, to have at least a couple of meetings with people in the neighborhood that's immediately to the north, and with the Rolling Hills neighborhood folks, to do what you can to mitigate the impact it has on them as part of this 120-day thing. I'd like a report back within 120 days that you've done that. That may or may not be outside of the terms of 1408, but I think that if we put it as part of the resolution, and you and I have dealt with each other before, and I've dealt with Michael before, that I think that I have a personal assurance that you're going to do that if that's part of my motion to approve.
We absolutely assure that, and we're making efforts to acquire more neighboring property every day. And with the realization this won't be our last time back here before you can be assured that we will comply with that wholeheartedly.
I understand the acquisition part of it, and that again, that's kind of a catch-22, because once you acquire more property, then you become somebody else's neighbor. You become the neighbor of the guy that's contiguous to the property you've acquired, and then this problem starts all over just with another set of complainants. So
I'm not sure saying they want to make the landfill bigger was a good argument to have.
Pete, would you summarize your motion? So everybody, my motion made and seconded, but I want to make sure everybody.
My motion is to approve, but with the caveat, I think. With the caveat that within 120 days there will be a report back here with regard to the compliance of all the PUDs, all the existing ones, report by staff, and that that they will be able to report, the applicant will report back to us on meetings held with the neighbors to the north and the neighbors to the west about what you've done to mitigate those problems. That is the tree line problem on the west, that's the dust problem on the north.
We have a motion made and seconded.
Can I ask a question on that, Pete? The legal effect of the caveat, would it be more in line to amend the ordinance?
I don't know. Dan here? Yeah.
If the ordinance is approved, if PUD 1408 is approved today, a caveat that they come back in and make a report has no effect on the validity of the ordinance. It's still zoned 1408.
I understand that.
Okay.
Our leverage would be, if they fail to comply,
they would be subject to citation.
Well, if they fail to comply, 970 is in violation. So
that's what I mean. And if there's any violations in 1408, which would...
They would be subject to citation.
And what I'm asking for is that they agree to do that before we go out and look to cite them. Because I think we have a partnership with them. It's a little different than some businesses in Oklahoma City. This is different. These people are the people who operate that landfill are our partners. What I would much prefer is we act like partners. Is that we agree to do this, and I appreciate what you're saying, Skip, that we don't have that's not enforceable, but it is enforceable if they're out of compliance.
Exactly. So that whether the caveat was there or not, we would still have the enforcement authority to make sure that they are in compliance with the PUD terms.
Yes, sir. And by the way, we would be happy to meet with staff, and we'd like to meet with staff if we could be of any benefit in the interpretation of 970 as we go through that period.
Well, obviously, there's a difference in interpretation of 970, exactly. And we'll have to rely on our staff to sort of
we'd like that opportunity.
Discuss that and make sure
you can be assured that we will treat it as a requirement.
Good, thank you.
Well, I consider this the bully pulpit compromise as opposed to the meat cleaver form of compromise. So I would rather do it this way. I mean, I have a lot of respect for all the people involved in this thing, and I've dealt with some of you for a long, long, long time. And I have a good feeling that this can be worked out.
Very good. All ready to cast your votes? And the item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I appreciate everybody who took the time to make comments, and it was very helpful to our deliberations this morning. Item 3, PUD 1411, 13003 Northwest 3rd Street, from PUD 1701 Plan Unit Development to PUD 1411 Plan Unit Development, Ward 3.
Thank you, Your Honor. The applicant I see is present. If you would, just give, again, the council a very brief overview of what this is all involved with. And nobody has signed up on this?
Sure. I'm Kendall Dillon with Crafton Toll Sparks, representing the applicant. And just real briefly, this is the purpose of this application is to rezone 5-acre parcel that you see there on the map in order to permit a senior independent living and assisted living facility for this particular project. It's a little bit unique of an application in the fact that it lies within an approved final plat that you see. The final plat that you see before you there was a final plat that was approved and filed in March of 2007. All the infrastructure is already constructed. It was developed as a gated community for garden homes, and it has a large pond there in the middle with a walking trail around it and those sort of amenities. It's got a masonry wall around the perimeter, but for whatever reason, the project has really been unsuccessful. So at today, this developer/owner still owns and operates and maintains the entire subdivision. So we have an opportunity at this point to develop the eastern portion of it as an assisted living center. Our overall plan is to allow that assisted living center to come in, but yet to maintain the whole entire final plat as one homeowners/property owner association to develop them. They'll both have abilities to access, to utilize, and to maintain the common areas, but to also give the single-family residents the abilities to participate with this assisted living center as far as recreational, social activities, any kind of assistance that they may want. So in general, that's what the plan is. Obviously, the Planning Commission recommended unanimously to approve it. We feel like that in relation to this site, to the hospital, and once again, it's a gated subdivision, so we think that lends to making it a really nice development, and we ask for your approval.
And you're in agreement with all the TEs?
Yes.
With that, I move that this be approved.
Second.
Made and second. Any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the item is approved. Item number 4, SPUD 548, 540 Southeast 82nd Street from R1 Single Family Residential District to SPUD 548 Simplified Plan Unit Development District in Ward 4. And I've been informed that the easement that has been requested has been delivered.
It has.
It has been. So, Pete.
Are there any persons here to speak in opposition to this?
We have one person signed up to speak on behalf of the owner on regard zoning, Steve Kuntz.
You're here to speak for the applicant?
Yes.
Okay. That there's no one here to speak in opposition. Am I correct?
No, nobody signed up.
Have all the technical requirements been met? Everything has been done that's required?
We have agreed to all the technical evaluations.
Okay. Including the half-street paving that you and I discussed earlier? Okay. Then I'm going to move approval.
Second.
Sure. Now,
be careful.
You recognize you take a great risk when there's a motion to approve your deal.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm going to try to tread lightly here.
Okay.
I'm representing the owner, the person that purchased this property and stipulated in his purchase agreement that he wanted the seller to rezone this land to the I. And he has no problem with anything that's going on here. It's all good. It's all moving forward. He purchased this with the intent of expanding his business, which is currently located across the street on the north side of 82nd. He wants to, build another structure to help expand his business. The only question that we had when we became aware of the master design statement, and I might be speaking out of a little bit of ignorance here to the protocol of the city and the planning, and on Section 2, Item 1, on the architectural requirement that the exterior finish of the structure be completely covered and no steel allowed. That have? Okay, that was our only.
Submitted at the time the TEs were agreed to.
Okay, we weren't aware of that.
That's okay then?
Yes, sir. It was amended back at the time all the other TEs were agreed to. That was the only change in the entirety. It was originally agreed back when it was submitted that it was going to be a metal structure,
right?
Just like all the other structures there in that industrial park.
Right.
And so we made an amendment to that. I think the staff's aware of it too as well.
I was by there this weekend, and that's going to be if you do it the way this is, it's going to be a nice addition. It's going to finishing that out or moving toward finishing out is going to be a good thing. Again, I have a motion to.
We have a motion made and seconded. So, is there any further discussion or comments? Ready to vote? And the item is passed. Item number 5, SPUD 550, property located 390 feet west of North Rockwell Avenue, approximately 850 north of the Northwest Expressway, from PUD 99A, Planned Unit Development District, to SPUD 550, Simplified Planned Unit Development District, and it's in Ward 1.
Thank you, Mayor. Is anybody here to speak against this? Have all the TEs been agreed to on this one? I'll move approval.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this item? Please cast your votes, and the item carries. Item 8B, ordinance on final hearing, recommended for denial. This is a SPUD 549, 8,000 Northwest 89th Street from Southwest 89th Street, from AA Agricultural to SPUD 549, Simplified Plan Unit Development District, Ward 3. Larry, how would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Your Honor. What I'd like to do, is the applicant present?
Sir?
Applicant is present, right?
I'm here.
I'd like to have the applicant present what he'd like to do. Then, has anybody signed up to protest, Francis?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
okay. Give them an opportunity, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Please give us your name and address.
My name is Bruce Knudsen. I own the property
the subject property and the 5.5 acres that abut it to the west and south, which does not show on your map. But those structures are my house and my shop building. I've been here off and on for 6 years and never been able to get approval because of neighbor complaints and Councilman McAtee not willing to approve it for whatever his good reasons. And I keep trying different things. This time I have a firm commitment from a fellow that would like to put a RV inside and outside storage facility there. And that's what I applied for to the Planning Commission. I would also like the right to be able to sell some RVs, because sometimes you get people that have one that they're storing and they would just like to sell it. But it's not going to be a sales facility as such. It would just be, I want to be able to put a for sale sign on one or two, whatever. It'll be a clean, well-lit, subtly lit facility with very little traffic. People usually store their RVs for months and months at a time. And I thought it was a good project. But this land is, I've been trying to rezone this land long before the people came out and built those, well, some are big houses, some are little houses, but they're all on small little lots. And I've had the people across the street are my main detractors, and they're with me today because they're like always. They filed bankruptcy 2 or 3 times in the last back-to-back, so I mean, what are they bringing to the table? And if you're building subdivisions, that adds a lot of traffic to this intersection. Mine would add so little that it wouldn't affect anything. And they like to complain about the junk that I've had on this property. There's never been any junk on that property. This 2.5 acres, up until a week ago, has never had anything on it but a fire truck, which I think is a farm truck, but we're working with the city on that one. And now I'm putting some vintage farm equipment on it. But everything they object to, which I thought was kind of pretty, was on the 5.5 acres. It really is not relevant to this 2 acres. It's been there for 6 years and never been a problem to anybody. That's it, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Knudsen.
All right, we have 2 people.
From the protest.
We have 2 people signed up. Cindy Cook. And Ms. Cook, could you give us your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Cindy Cook. I am building a home at 8901 Legacy Crossing Drive. My husband owns the subdivision. There's 8 lots. We also own 30 acres on the other side, on the east side of Council, in a subdivision that has 29 lots. That's called Hallbrook. I'm here because I don't want to decrease. I'm a realtor by profession. I don't want to decrease property values. I believe a boat and RV store will decrease property values. I also think that I do have traffic concerns. I think depending on how large or how many people, there will always be more traffic the more commercial buildings you put in. But I also have a question, is the rezoning of this district in compliance with the comprehensive plan of the city for this area?
We're going to ask the applicant if you sit down, sir, please. We appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I don't know that it matters, but I have pictures of what he's, of the stuff he's put on his property, that the antique replicas of farm equipment, but he's also spray painted some messages to you and me and some other neighbors as well on some of the equipment that he puts out.
Excuse me, sir. Would you let her, please? Would you please let her, excuse me, sir, would you let her please finish? Thank you.
Right. So anyway, I don't appreciate what he's doing to the property now, and I don't want it to be a boat and RV storage for the reasons that I mentioned. Thank you.
JJ, the question was asked, is it in compliance with the comp plan?
Well, the area is largely rural residential in nature, although it's on a section line corner. But we would say no, it's not in conformance for that reason. It's really largely remains a largely rural residential area, and you're bringing in a heavy commercial/industrial use to that area.
Good, thank you. Lori Jackson signed up. Ms. Jackson? And you might use either microphone here still. Just if you pull it down so you're speaking into it, please, and give us your name and address for the record, please.
Lori Jackson, and I live at 8900 Legacy Crossing Drive.
Okay, thank you.
We moved here out of state in November and looked from one side of Oklahoma to the other to find a home to purchase, to live the rest of our life here. And we chose this area because of the family residential homes in that area, quiet country living. And when we heard about this doesn't sound like something that we would want to live across the street from. I'm sure nobody would. So we oppose that the boat and RV storage building to be built. For the integrity of the community out there, the property values would be lower, the increased traffic would not be good, and I guess we're appealing to you to help us with that. Thank you.
Larry? Thank you. Would the applicant like to say anything? Yes. If you would come forward, please, sir.
Again, I would say that this property has been sitting there for 6 years vacant, and I hope you like my artwork. That's on the other property, but if they haven't liked plans A, B, C, and D, which I've brought to you before, they're certainly not going to like E, because I'm just on a roll now. I'm going to develop that land in the agricultural vein for which it's zoned, and I've already had complaints about that, too. You can't make them happy, but I think, Councilman, you told the group once, you're leaving me no option but to sue the city. I'm at that point now, sir. I have no options. I can't get a permit. They don't like my fire engine. They won't let me build a building. I'm just really between a rock and a hard space, and apparently circuit court is my only option, because I'm just, I'm getting tired. This has been a long time. And again, those people moved out there. There was a sign on that property that said for sale, commercial potential, which they also complained about. But it's been up there for years, and everybody in the world knows that that land was set aside for commercial development. And when I bought the land, before I bought it, I talked to Mr. Paulson, who is or was in the Planning Commission, and he said, 2 acres on section lines, city loves it, it's a slam dunk. He said that fits in with the master plan. So we went ahead and bought the property at that time because we wanted to control what was going to be in our front yard. It'll still be in our front yard. I'm not going to do anything to that area that will detract from my property. But if it's going to be AA, it will be truly AA. And as you know, the city can't control what my neighbors call junk on agricultural property within the city limits. Like I said, if they don't like what they've seen so far, then you should never let them complain again. And I really don't expect this to pass. It's just I'm here to document, and then we're going to court. And I think as a taxpayer, I hate to see that happen, because it's a legitimate business operation, and they're all over the city, and they look nice. They can be very attractive. But that's all I had to say, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Knutson. Just some historical perspective, and then if you have any questions. The Planning Commission, JJ, are you still there? The Planning Commission heard the case. The neighbors were here and presented their impression of the operation. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to deny the application, agreeing that it was a section line road and an intersection. I think, JJ, it was not in compliance with the comp plan, because the comp plan did not envision this heavy type of commercial activity in this mainly residential and AA area. And so based on what the comp plan said, the Planning Commission voted 8-0 against it. Am I correct in that?
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
Right. And so based on that fact, and I have heard nothing today to change that opinion, I move that their denial be upheld.
Okay. Before we vote on it, Brian, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just had, what is the closest area to this property that has the proposed use? What is the distance? Do you have any idea?
Closest location to this property that has a similar business that he's
Correct.
asking for?
Correct.
Have any idea?
Okay.
Are there any other comments or discussion before we vote on this? We have a motion to essentially deny this application. A yes vote would be supportive of that. A yes vote would deny the application. So are you ready to vote? Cast your ballots. And the application is denied. Thank you very much. Item 8C is ordinance on a final hearing for approval, CE 779, closing the east-west alley in Block 123, North Oklahoma City Addition, south of Northwest 63rd Street and east of Western Avenue. It's in Ward 2. Sam?
Thank you, Mayor. I see the applicant, represented by Tim Johnson, but I just want to say of all the neighborhood issues with Chesapeake in the last 5 to 6 years that I've been involved in, this is a expanded land use that the neighbors are going to have to love. This is a full block east of the campus that they own entirely, vacant lot, and asking for the closing of the alley that runs east and west between it for a community garden. Just an idea that's way ahead of the green stream here in Oklahoma. It'll be for employees, but I understand there's a relationship with the food bank as well. So I think it's just a plus for all. I don't think there's any protests. We didn't receive any protests here today.
We have nobody sign up, Sam.
Move for the approval of this close.
And motion made in seconds.
Would you compare this to being nibbled to death by a duck? I mean, I just wonder, is there any plan for where Chesapeake's going to go? I mean, are they just going to go? If we run the Nichols Hills Council, could we expect them to annex that into Chesapeake Village tomorrow?
It's Mr. Johnson, Mr. Cott, or Dennis Box are both here, but it's just hard to say. Things change with Chesapeake every day.
I think that's probably Dennis Box on behalf of the applicant. That's probably the best answer. I will say that, as Councilman Bowman said, this is a situation where they're trying to do positive things for the community, and as they always do, they've got commercial that will be going to the west side of Western, and they hope to expand their campus, and you'll have mixed use and a lot of different developments. We have committed to get with Janice Powers and Councilman Bowman within the next 60 days and kind of talk about the question you just raised, and that is, where do they see things going in the future?
Their plan is similar to what my father's was. My father used to say that he didn't want to own all the land in the world. He just wanted that what touched his. And that seems to me that that's Chesapeake's philosophy with regard to having a plan. At some point, I think there is a comparison between the kind of sprawl that occurs when you take that highly concentrated use out of the core of the city and move it where they're locating. I think there's a correlation between that and moving development out to the suburban, into the rural areas. That spreads the city's ability to respond with infrastructure, with police, fire, all the things that it does. And I think there's no difference between suburban sprawl and rural sprawl. And I think it would just be nice to have some way to get your arms around what they actually intend to do at some point in time. And maybe your conversation about meeting with the planning commissioner and the councilman's a good idea, but it just occurs to me that how nice that would have been if all that had been concentrated downtown instead of 5, 10, 6, 8 miles away from downtown. That's it. This is just a bully pulpit day for me. I accept it.
You said this is for purposes. You don't get off that easy. A community garden?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of garden?
They have raised beds that exist in the block that Councilman Bowman talked about, and they have people within the organization, within Chesapeake, that come. Last night, there was probably half a dozen people out that were working within different beds, and all kinds of different vegetables being planted.
So we're talking about farming.
Talk about gardening.
We'll take a whole block.
Whole block.
And it's going to feed who?
Probably those that till it, and if there's extra, those that need it.
Skip, as I understand, talking with Chesapeake, it's 200 to 250 plots, raised plots, small community gardens, which employees will participate in through some membership arrangement. It'll be maintained by the corporation through fees for employee fees that pay for the use of those gardens, and then some general food will be raised in conjunction with a community giving, a food bank giving. I think it's without question, and with regards to Mr. White's question about Chesapeake, it's within a large PUD that Council approved a couple of years ago on the east side of the campus all the way to, I think, Chartel up to 63rd Street that provides for mixed-use development. Now, what kind of mixed-use development that is at this point, we don't have any idea. I would say this very block is going to be part of that mixed-use development in time. That it sits fallow and vacant at this time, and it's at least a short-term use of that property. And it'll have other intentions.
We're not approving the use of that property as a garden or a community garden operation or a farm. What we're doing is approving a request or considering a request to close an alley to make that two pieces of property contiguous. And so we want to keep that in mind, that we're not commenting on the value or lack of value in gardening.
Well, Mr. Mayor, unless I'm reading upside down, it says the purpose to utilize this block for a community garden.
That's right. But the action we're taking this morning is to close an alley.
Use is permitted.
So the question is, does the public need this alley any longer? And our position would be they don't. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion made and second. Is there any further discussion or questions on this issue? If not, please cast your votes. And the item carries unanimously. Item D is an ordinance on a final hearing relating to some changes in the personnel and retirement systems dictated by the IRS. We've had opportunities to discuss this and review it previously. Are there any other questions or comments on this before we have a motion made and second? Before we vote, any comments or questions? Please cast your votes, and the items carry. Item 8E1 is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures, and we have a long list of those. Is there anybody who would like to speak on any item listed under 8E1? We have a Gene Von Stern or Stein. Gene Von Stein.
I'm Gene Von Stein, the owner of the duplex at 3717 North Ollie in Crown Heights Historic District.
Okay, and that would be item L on our agenda.
I'm sorry,
It would be item L on our agenda, so the council will be aware of which one you're talking about. 3717 North Ollie Avenue is item L under 8E1.
Right. Okay. Yes, sir. My attorney, Bill Comstock, could not be here today, but he advised me to appear and report that we have an agreement in place with a reliable and reputable building contractor to repair the garage. And our construction plan has been submitted to Danny Bumpus of the Development Services Department, and he has approved it for repair of the garage. The work is to start Thursday, the day after tomorrow, to straighten up the garage to alleviate the apparent possibility of collapse. This is definite as a starting date as approved by Danny Bumpus. We further have a meeting this afternoon with a structural engineer and the contractor with me at the site to review the contractor's proposal for reinforcing and strengthening the framing structure to assure that it is suitable to stabilize the structure for the future. And in case that the structural engineer makes a recommendation that is going to take longer than we have anticipated, we respectfully ask that action by the council be deferred through June in order to accommodate any extra work that has not been proposed by the contractor but is recommended by the engineer. We appreciate your consideration.
This is Ward 2. Sam, would you like?
I see Charles at the microphone. It just sounds to me, Mr. Stein, you're making all the progress and movement in line with what you've been asked to do. And if you're doing that within the 30-day time period, Charles, we just keep it on?
We've accepted his plan. We should leave it on. We're more than willing to work with him. Like I said, we've accepted his plan as outlined. We'll complete it just outside our 30 days, so we don't have a problem with his timeline at all. And if it takes a little more time, that would be fine too. But it is in danger of collapse. We just need to make sure that we have a plan B.
Sounds like we're all right with a 30-day notice, Mr. Stein, as long as you keep in contact with staff.
Yes, we certainly will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stein. Are there any other questions or comments? Would anybody care to make a motion on this item? Have a motion made and second. Further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the item's carried. Next item on our agenda, item 8F. It is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Is there anybody here who would like to speak on any item under 8F1? A motion made and second. All those in favor say aye. Or pardon me, cast your votes. And the motion is carried. It's a different meeting, I'm sorry. Item 8G is a revocable right-of-way use permit with the Corner Booth Productions, LLC, to hold Rocking Reunion May 15th through 16th, 2010, Southwest 25th Street between South Walker Avenue and South Robinson Avenue, and it is Ward 6.
It is indeed, and I saw Jerry Montgomery here with the Capitol Hill Main Street program. It looks like she may have taken the opportunity to step out. I think we've spoken about this before. Corner Booth Productions is a group of graduates of Capitol Hill High School who are really excited about bringing folks from all over the community back to 25th Street. So I don't believe there's been any negative discussion about this. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend, so I would move approval, please.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the motion item carries. Item H1, a public hearing on a resolution amending the June 16, 2009 resolution of the City Council that approves certain police listed and other projects for the fiscal year 2009-2010. Jim, would you like to say anything about this?
Mr. Vice Mayor, this is to accommodate a American Recovery and Reinvestment Act project with the community-oriented policing services, and we're using those ARRA funds to provide an additional 7 officers to the department. And I think we've had presentations on that previously as to what areas those folks will work.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the item is approved. Item 8I is a public hearing on the budget. Some amendments to the budget. Mr. City Manager, would you like to say something about this one?
Yes, sir. This is generally housekeeping. We're doing some things like to modify the debt service fund to align our numbers with the County Excise Board, some changes in some grants that have come in, primarily the JAG grant that comes into the police department. It also reflects the ARRA COPS grant that we just approved a minute ago as far as how that works. And it's also to acknowledge that we will be receiving dollars in this year's budget for both MAPS 3 sales tax and the MAPS 3 use tax, and those set those up into a fund. And that's some internal modifications that are really categorized as housekeeping.
Something we do every year.
Yes, sir.
I think. Motion made and second. Is there any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the item carries. Item J, I understand we do not need executive session?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, we have a motion to strike the item. Please cast your votes. And it's stricken. Item K, we do need executive session.
Yes, sir.
So the item has been moved to executive session. Please cast your votes. And the item is approved. Item L, we do not need executive session. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I have a motion to strike and second. Motion, please cast your votes, and that item is stricken. Item 8M1, claims recommended for denial. Is there anybody signed up to speak on any of these items? I have a motion made and second. Is there any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye. Pardon me. All those cast your votes. Sorry. See what you get if you have a vice mayor. You just got to pay better. Next item is items from council. Gary, do you have anything for him?
Just a couple of comments. I don't know how you could be downtown Thursday and Saturday and not understand the impact the thunder had. What a tremendous 2 nights we've had down there, and with all the other stuff going on. And I will report that the Arts Festival preliminary reports appears to be very successful, both in the attendance, but the food sales and the art sales, and it was just a great time to be downtown. So good things are going on.
Sam? Larry?
Just a quick comment on what Gary said. I was out shopping with my wife last week, and at a checkout counter, we were in line, and a gentleman came up behind me with a Thunder shirt on, so I just commented, "Oh, you're a Thunder fan." He just went, "Yeah, I really like it, really excited and all." And the lady who was checking out the merchandise, a lady my age, if you will, I'm not going to say what exactly that is, just started beaming. And she said, "The Thunder is my life." She said, "I have season tickets." She said, "I just can't wait to go to another game. They have just really given me a new purpose in life." So I hope people have other purposes in life other than the Thunder. But it just struck me again, is what Gary was saying, is how widespread Thunder fever is in Oklahoma City, and people, our residents, are really getting excited about it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you for your comment. Pete?
A couple things. First, I want to just express my appreciation to the council for enduring that discussion about the landfill. That's a very difficult problem, and I'm sure it's and it really impacts all of us, whether we've got a landfill in our wards or not. And I appreciate giving us time to really go through that. Secondly, I want to mention that a project is kicking off today that's really being pushed by County Commissioner Mon, and it's an effort to do a real serious cleanup in his county commission district. He's kicking it off today at 2 o'clock just on Eastern, just north of where Crooked Oak High School sits, to start, and he's in cooperation with with the district attorney, David Prater, and it's the first effort at the cleanup, and they're having a little public ceremony doing it, but it's really a good idea. It includes everything from cleaning up trash to cleaning up graffiti. I mean, it's a effort. It's a new partner really for us to have the county partner with us to do that. And I would encourage anybody that has time to just drop by there at 2 o'clock this afternoon to see that kickoff of that program, because they're starting at a spot that's very difficult, has been very difficult for law enforcement, and it's a real trashy place besides that. So in more ways than one. North of there, north of the video store. It's a very difficult location, and they're going to go in and clean it up. So that's the first project. Thank you.
Brian? Yeah, Pete, if you'll go ahead and pass those around so the audience will know what I'm getting ready to speak of. I'll hold this up. And what this is it's a sign. It says Thunder Proud. It's at a MidFirst Bank location who happens to be a sponsor of the Thunder. And I'm so proud of them. I'm not a big basketball fan generally, but I think what they've done is amazing. But what strikes me about this is that, and I'll let somebody else answer this question, is it's my understanding that sign's illegal. Is that correct?
Appears to be.
Okay. I'm not going to specify which location this is, because I think that by the looks of this sign, my guess is that the employees did not create this sign. It looks like it was professionally done, probably set down by the corporate office. I personally have absolutely zero problem with this sign. I think it's tasteful. I think it's nice. There's actually multiple signs like this on this property. But what I want to point out is that that we either need to send them a note and have them remove all of these signs at every location that they have, or we need to revisit the banner sign ordinance and say, something like this that's this tasteful should be allowed. I don't want there to be a double standard just because we have a Thunder sponsor having an illegal sign. I don't want there to be a double standard as to the guy that has the ice cream shop or the guy that has the widget place that wants to do the exact same thing. I'm well aware of many, many times that signs like this, and especially in my ward, I'm sure everybody else has them as well, that have been tastefully done, professionally done, look nice like this, that have actually been sent as a complaint to the city, and they have had to remove these signs. So I just think in the spirit of consistency and fairness, that just because they're a Thunder sponsor doesn't necessarily mean that they get away with having an illegal sign on the property. Maybe we need to revisit the ordinance.
Brian, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. It hasn't been too long ago that I turned in multiple locations for a very tasteful sign done uniformly like the Thunder sign on new Cricket stores, not just in my ward. And they were addressed and taken care of very quickly. And I think that this is consistent with that, and Thunder should not get any special privilege. If we open the door, unless we want to revisit the whole thing, unless we open the door, we've got a banner situation. It is just beyond enforcement, and the way we get it done, to the best of our ability, is on a complaint basis. And I'm happy you've raised this. I mean, the fact that it's Thunder, I think it's as tastefully done as anything we'll see.
Well, I do want to make the point that I'm not complaining about this, because I think that this should be allowed. I have no problem with this sign.
I disagree.
But under the ordinance that we have voted on, if this sign is illegal, then it needs to be treated as such.
And I think we
appreciate you bringing the complaint forward.
I think we got to give the city staff clear instructions that we want these out of the way by next Sunday.
Part of the problem may simply be that the illegality of it may simply be that they haven't pulled a permit. They possibly could do it with the permit. I don't know what the location is. I don't know if it's on the right. I don't know what the right-of-way is and all of that. But the other problem that you're getting into is you can't regulate taste. And if you think that this is tasteful, but the person that drives two T-bar fence posts in and strings a banner up between them is not tasteful, I don't know how we regulate that. That could be the problem. So I understand what you're saying, but the dilemma is going to be if you try to find a way to allow them.
This should be an easy fix for the Thunder.
And I think we ought to make sure they do it promptly after Sunday. Meg?
Very, very quickly, I just can't let last week go by either. I've never seen people in Oklahoma City smiling and so energetic and so happy. Steve Lackmeyer, I think, encapsulated it a little bit in an article today, and he sort of concluded that if Saturday's game didn't turn the Thunder around, it certainly has turned around all of Oklahoma City, and just a wonderful time to be living here.
Skip?
First of all, I would, and I don't normally acknowledge people that come before the council, but what I saw this morning, I think, deserves a compliment on behalf of Mr. Thompson, who represents the company as it relates to this PUD 970 and 1408, and Mr. Laird and Mr. Is it Steve Sherman? And they're both attorneys, and I don't know if Mr. Thompson is. But I would like to say that they did a very professional presentation on both sides of the issue. And as difficult as it was, I think that the presentation and the way they had prepared their case on both sides, in some respect, made it a lot easier for us to make a decision, as difficult as it was. And I would just like to compliment them on the way they conducted themselves before the council, and also after I saw Mr. Thompson speaking with one of the residents that had appeared here last week, and it really shows that, you know, they have an obvious intent to try to get this matter worked out, and so I would like to compliment them on that. And as far as the Thunder, put the sign wherever you want to. Let's play ball and win this game.
City manager reports.
Mr. Vice Mayor, in the interest of time this morning, I've asked Mr. Klaus to take his do the presentation this morning on Plan OKC, but on the consolidated plan to put that off, and we'll bring that back next week so we can get through in a timely manner this morning. So with that, Mr. Klaus, you want to talk to us a little bit about Plan OKC?
Good morning, Mr. Vice Mayor and Council. This really is an exciting time for us in terms of setting the future plans for Oklahoma City. The comprehensive plan is the primary guiding document that Oklahoma City uses in terms of determining land use and the way that we grow. The intent of the plan is to guide that growth so that we have the quality, that we continue the quality of life that we currently enjoy, that we develop the city in the most efficient and effective way we can. Can we go back on that? And that we are constantly staying on target in terms of developing the kind of city that we want to enjoy in the future. I'm going to talk about what the purpose of the plan is in terms of what is the comprehensive plan, a little update on that, why we need a new plan and why it's important. And then Susan Miller, who is really heading up the effort here on the comprehensive plan, is going to give you the content of the plan and then the process as we go forward. So the comprehensive plan, what is it? As I said, it really is the city's primary guiding document for land use. It captures the city's vision. That's a vision that is articulated by the citizens. We have a very extensive citizen engagement process. That's what we're just about to go into. The staff have, for the last year and a half, or even longer if you consider the sector planning process, been putting together the analysis that's going to be required to inform the plan. That process will continue as we go forward, but we've done a lot of data analysis so far, and now the point is to work with that data, with the citizens, with the other departments, with the planning commissioners and the city council and every stakeholder, and that really does include everybody in the city, everybody who has a stake in the content and direction of the comprehensive plan. We want to ensure that they are aware that the planning process is going on and that they welcome. In fact, we would encourage as many people as we can to participate in this process because it really is the city's plan, everybody in the city. Why do we need a new plan? It might surprise you to know that we've only had 3 plans so far. The first was in 1930, second in 1949, and the last plan we had was 33 years ago now in 1977. We have updated that plan a little bit, But bear in mind that Oklahoma City is a very different place in 2010 than it was in 1977. So we want to make sure, can you go back, please? We want to make sure that we are planning for the city of the future. A plan that's 33 years old is really not a visionary document any longer. It's really a record of the past. And so it's time for us, in fact, we're overdue in terms of setting the agenda for where we want to go in the future. I think all the comprehensive plans in the past have been very much a planning department initiative. We want to make sure that this time around that everybody is involved in this, that all the departments are involved, because we really do consider it to be the city's plan. We may be managing the process for the development of the plan, but it really is everybody's plan, and everybody we have encouraged to be involved in that. Other departments have participated already. Susan and her crew have been meeting with other staff for the last couple of, with other departmental staff for the last couple of months. Those meetings have been going extremely well. They're excited about the prospect of this, and therefore we want to continue to encapsulate as many stakeholders as possible. So how have we grown? This is a very telling slide in terms of where Oklahoma City is now. Population has increased 40% since 1977, but you can see in these other areas here that the city has grown substantially more. That leaves us a little bit behind in our capacity to be able to keep up with that growth. Water treated is up 60%, utility service area 63%. The entire developed area is 2.5 times what that population growth has been, and then lane miles of roads is probably the most telling feature there, 275% increase. That's part of the signal of the way that we have grown. We have to look at whether that's sustainable over the longer term. I think that it's done very well for the vitality of the city, but can we sustain that? Do we need to look at alternative patterns to ensure that we can continue to pay for the growth of the city in the future? A lot of things have changed. Shifting demographics. We have, I think the middle class is shrinking a little bit. We have a much higher proportion now of Latinos in the community. Cost recovery, it's very important that we be able to pay for ourselves as we move forward. We're very much a closed system in terms of funding. We get a little bit of funding from the feds, virtually very little from the state. So we have to pay our own ways. So it's very important that the growth pattern that we set is something that we can sustain over the longer term. As we've grown and as the communities around us have grown, there's an increasing regional awareness of issues that affect all of us. That includes water, air quality. We're now having discussions on regional transit, school districts, and sales tax leakage is one that's particularly pertinent in relation to our current budgetary situation. We've had a lot of sales tax leakage or increasing proportion of sales tax leakage to surrounding communities. We want to try and address that as well. Land fragmentation, we do have a very large city, and I think that encourages people to perhaps be not as efficient with some of the land uses from time to time, and we get conflicts between opposing land uses. We'll have industrial encroachment into industrial encroachment into residential and vice versa. The comp plan is a way to guide that development so that we can reduce those conflicts as much as possible. Shifting employment sectors. We've lost a lot of major employers over the last decade or so. What we want to try and do is to set an environment that is going to enable us to be able to attract those future employment sectors. So this is laying that platform for what the way the job sector is going to change in the future. It's not looking at what we have right now, but looking at the way that the employment market is going to change over time. There's a growing need and also a growing demand for transportation alternatives. The modern streetcar is part of that. We've had a lot of support for bike routes and trails and sidewalks over the last several years, and we want to be able to continue to provide those and perhaps accelerate the provision of those in accordance with community demands. And then information demands have changed. Whereas we used to just basically operate by hard copy, we now have a whole range of different mechanisms that we can communicate with people. That puts additional pressure on us in terms of being able to use all of those different mechanisms to communicate to our clients. And then the other thing that, that's really changed, we've had a lot of positive change, and we've talked about some of that with the NBA team, what's happened downtown. We now have water in the river as well, and we're beginning to attract attention from the Olympic facility. We have a lot more cultural and retail opportunities in the city. So the city has really matured a lot in the last 33 years, and we want to provide that platform for that to continue to evolve and attract things that we may not even have imagined at this point in time. One of the interesting demographic changes that we're going to witness here in the very near future is the population of people who are over 65. For the last several decades, we've hovered around the 10% mark in terms of the number of people in the city that are over 65. In the next couple of decades, that's going to increase substantially as a result of the aging of the baby boomers. And so in 2020, we're going to go up to nearly 14%. And then by 2030, we're going to have a 16% of the population. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that is almost, look at that blue number at the bottom there, our growth in people over 65 is going to be 67%. The overall population is going to grow 19%, so we're growing at about 10% a decade, but the number of people over 65 is going to increase 60%, 67% during that time frame. It's a fairly substantial shift in proportion in the population, and that's something we're going to need to account for. Why is the plan important? It addresses all the critical needs and issues of the city. It looks at water, and Susan is going to go into that in more detail, but all of those things that create a city that are important for us in terms of making our decisions are all captured within the comprehensive plan. And as I talked about earlier, it directs growth so that we can be as efficient as we can in the provision of city services. And also in that same vein, it informs the capital improvement project program plan process. I'm going to briefly introduce here in terms of the approach that we are using. The guiding principle for this is sustainability. And the next slide will illustrate that further. We're going to talk about previous plans, and then we're going to talk about the plan elements, and that's what Susan is going to talk to. We've really constructed this plan so that it has a sort of three-legged approach here. In terms of sustainability, you can go to the next slide. All of these things are integrally linked. You can't have a healthy economy if you don't have a healthy environment. You can't have a healthy community if you don't have a healthy economy and environment as well. So all of these things are equally balanced in terms of their importance for guiding the construction of the plan, and we want to make sure that as we communicate with our stakeholders in this, that they're aware that this is a difficult balancing act. And the main point is to really ensure that this plan is going to facilitate future generations being able to continue to enjoy the same quality of life that we have, and if possible, to build on that. The last thing you want to do is to be able to borrowing from the future. So an important part of the plan is to sort of lay a better platform for future growth. And that is integrated through the plan. You're probably familiar with some of these plans. We've been working on a number of different plans that have been amended to the comprehensive plan over the years. We have a number of different corridor and area plans, Asian District Plan, Northeast 23rd Street, Northwest 23rd Street, Southwest 44th Street. Those are all plans that have been adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. We want to integrate those now into the plan so that anything that hasn't yet been implemented that's still valid, still important going forward, that will now be captured within the plan document proper. The sector plans, those are, as I said, an essential founding process for the development of the comprehensive plan, and then various functional plans as well, like the bike plan, the trails plan, and the transportation level of service that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So all those plans are now going to be integrated into the comprehensive plan. And with that, I'll hand it over to Susan, and Susan will talk to you about the content of the plan and then the process going forward.
Russell, I could ask a question about one of those statistics, and it is, why do you think that Oklahoma has a lower percentage of people over 65 than the national average? Do they leave? Do they die? I mean, which is it?
They probably do some of both.
Well, I'm sure they do, but
I just want to a presentation recently where they talked about the proportion of people over 65 on a national sense being substantially higher than these numbers here. And these are an extrapolation of our local demographics. So it's a best guesstimate based on current population distribution. It may end up more than that. I think with the senior centers, there's a possibility that Oklahoma City is going to become more attractive for seniors as a place to live. So it's quite possible we may actually get some net immigration of seniors into the community. But
it's not really been broken down with regard to whether it's because we're overweight or we smoke more than the national average or any of those kind of things.
Well, they probably play a minor role in that, and why we have a proportionally smaller population of seniors, I'm not sure.
Too much dust, maybe.
Could be.
Right, inheritance tax, right.
Could
Death
be.
tax, right.
We're trying to grow all the different age groups within the city.
Yeah. Okay.
Good morning. Also, I think that the national average captures the areas that are retirement communities that a lot of people move to. So those percentages are going to be really high, and I think that probably skews the national average a little. Okay, I'm going to talk about the plan elements. These are the 9 elements of the plan. I'm going to briefly walk you through these and tell you what we hope to achieve in each of these elements. First is sustain OKC. This is the future land use element. The purpose of this element is to direct the location, type, intensity, and form of the development patterns that we hope to see in the city. This is really the element that a lot of the other elements are going to feed into. The goal, of course, is to ultimately achieve efficient and sustainable growth pattern in the city. Connect OKC, this is the transportation element. We are looking at how people get around the city. People are now wanting to not be solely dependent on their automobile, so we're looking at our connections, how all these things work together, bikes, trails, the bus routes, and automobile. Green OKC is the environmental and natural resources element. It's a challenge for us because we're looking, when we get development proposals in, we want to help facilitate new development, but we also want to effectively manage our natural resources. At this point, sometimes you'll see development applications come forward that are in the environmental conservation land use designation. We know there's some work to do on that. We know there's areas within that designation that need to be relooked at, and there's also areas that don't have that designation currently that may need to. Also, there may be different levels of that designation that need to be applied to different properties based on their characteristics. So there's a lot to do in this area. The next element is Live OKC, which is the communities element. I tend to refer to this as really the neighborhood planning element of the plan. This is the element where we want to really address the issues that we hear from neighborhoods that they have to deal with, their quality of life issues, and elements like infill development or encroachment when areas around them start to erode their neighborhood. We really want to address these on a broad scale as a city rather than having to deal with them one by one as they come in, be more proactive with these type of things. Enrich OKC is the preservation, appearance, and culture element. Obviously, this is dealing with historic preservation. Appearance of the whole city, not just our design districts. We have, appearance issues we'd like to address citywide. But we do want to look at design districts again and make sure that we're achieving what we intended to achieve when those ordinances were adopted in the past couple of decades. Also, we're going to look at the cultural aspects of the city. Play OKC is our parks and recreation element. We're taking a little bit of a different approach. We're looking at both public and private open spaces, seeing how these work together. We want to look at the requirements when subdivisions come in. Are those adequate open spaces that are provided? Are they usable open spaces? How do those tie into our existing public open spaces? So there's a lot we need to look at here. Next is Strengthen OKC. The purpose of Strengthen OKC, this is our economic development element, is to attract, create, and retain jobs and create fiscal sustainability in the city. We want to look into industrial and retail attraction, improving the educational system. We know this is a big issue with economic development. also looking into placemaking in different areas in the city. Serve OKC, this is the public services element. The purpose, of course, is to provide public safety, libraries, quality school systems to citizens, ensure that efficient services occur as growth occurs, and this is, of course, always a challenge because we have such a large city. So this was our first city staff working group meeting, and it was interesting that everyone had that same issue, that it was a challenge as the city continues to grow out over such a large area to continue to provide the services that for all the citizens. And the last element is really the one that brings everything together in the end, is Go OKC. This is the implementation element. All of the policies and action statements will be brought together in this element. We're going to assign timeframes and responsible entities for each of the actions in the plan. We do want to make it something that we all feel the need to implement citywide and even outside of city staff with community involvement. So this leads me to the process, which is important. A little bit of a different approach we want to take because we do want to involve people that haven't always participated in the plan, so we're thinking of creative ways to sort of get to them and explain to them what we're doing. This is very conceptual about the process. Right now, we're really at the end of the data and analysis phase. Plan preparation and public process starts summer, late summer. You can see that lasts about a year and a half. I'll explain more about some of those details in a second. And then throughout end of 2011 and through the end of 2012, we're going to be assembling the draft plan and bringing it forward for adoption, hopefully by the end of 2012. Now I want to talk just a little bit about some of the details of the public process. There's been quite a few things we've already done. Let's see if I can find that. We have, we're working with Public Information Office to get some things out there. We have, of course, a website. We're on Twitter, Facebook. We have over 200 fans on Facebook. We're trying to, again, find ways to reach people who maybe haven't always been involved in the plan in the past, but should be. Let's see, we have, like I said, started city staff working group meetings. We're kind of well into that, but we have a little ways to go. We do have it's gone out in the water bill. I think this month, April and May, Plan OKC is going to go in the water bill, and it'll have the web address, Twitter, Facebook, tell how people can get involved. It'll give our staff phone number. People could also call. Our big meeting is our kickoff meeting, which is May 6th. That's next week here in council chambers. We have sent out, I have no idea how many invitations, an email blast to hundreds, perhaps thousands, I don't know, a lot. I know some of you, all of you should have received probably personal invitations. We've sent out quite a few of those also. We're hoping to have quite a public in attendance at that meeting. And we, at the tree giveaway last Saturday, there was some information given out to everyone who picked up a tree. So we're finding these little ways to get the word out at this time. Also during the summer, and this is something that's sort of a new idea, in order to get people involved that can bring expertise to our process, maybe in the environment and transportation and economic development, we're doing what we call Plan OKC presentation circuit, trying to get on the agendas of different organizations and agencies in the city and go out. We have about half a dozen of staff that are prepared to go out and give presentations over lunch hours to groups to help get those people involved who can really help contribute and, you know, increase the effectiveness of our plan in the end. In the fall, we're having stakeholder group meetings, and stakeholders are going to be hopefully these people we can recruit in Plan OKC presentation, council people if they wish to be involved, planning commissioners. This is really when that work starts. At this point with city staff, we are working to develop the issues, try to identify all those, and then we'll have a good list of that to bring forward to these stakeholder group meetings in the fall. And we also have some other things planned with neighborhood outreach, some school activities, and so that's about it. Any questions or comments?
Are there any questions or comments?
May I make just one very quick comment? In our effort to go green, I've been thinking about this for a while, but if we've got a PowerPoint presentation, I'm not sure we all need handouts too, so maybe we could cut down on some of the paper that we're using in all these meetings.
You got off easy, Susan. Good luck. I think it's a really worthwhile proposition.
Thank you.
I would just like to add that I hope you don't forget that as you serve OKC in your presentation, that code enforcement, I think, should be a main integral part of any plan in reference to the development of this city or the continued development of this city.
It always is, and the comprehensive plan really sort of lays out a fairly broad approach to the way we do our business. So I would imagine that's going to be one of the major issues that will be raised at public meetings.
Any other comments or questions? City Manager?
Also, I want to highlight the April sales and use tax collections report. Although April was level with last year, we need to remember that April of last year was down. And so if you look back, our collections for this month, April of 10, is $400,000 less than it was of April of 07. Just to put things in perspective for you. It's coming back and it's doing better, but we're not out of the woods yet. Year to date, we're 9.5% below last year, and that puts us down $19.5 million below last year, year to date. And so that's why we're going to have, that in a nutshell is why we have the budget issues that we're going to be dealing with over the next few weeks. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for our City Manager? Okay, the next item on our agenda is citizens to be heard. We've had one person sign up. Welby A. McBeath? Macbeth, yes. Excuse me, sir. Would you come forward, please, and give us your name and address for the records, if you would, please.
Welby McBeth, 12101 Old Paint Circle, New Wall, Oklahoma, 74857. Retired Army Master Sergeant, 34 years. If you want to know what my problem is, I'll show you. If you look at them papers, you'll see that I got a permit in there on the very back page, I think, in the city of Oklahoma. I've been working on this 5 years. I asked Mr. White to look into it. He called me. That was the last I heard of it. I've went through court. I went through bankruptcy. I went through everything trying to get this fence moved back where it's supposed to be, according to I went to the guy that owned the property. I told him, I said, look, you're on the property line. He says, prove it to me. So I went and got a survey. He said, now make me move it. And he was halfway through finishing it. The city of Oklahoma inspectors went out and informed him. Marcus Smith went out and informed him before he was done. He was about half done. He said, you are in what do they call it? On the, I'm no lawyer and I'm no high-priced educated college kid either, but he told him that he was on there and found out that he had to move it. So he told him to go ahead and get a revocable permit. So he went down and got a revocable permit. Later on, they found out that he had his fence, it was illegal. They revoked his permit, rescinded it. So the man sits there with no permit. We're in the city of Oklahoma. If I go out there and I go to put a fence in, I've got to get a permit. If I put a doghouse out there, I got to go get a permit. Everything I get, I got to have a permit for. This man gets away with no permits. He don't even have a permit for his fence that he has up now. And he has no permit for his garage. He has. All the rest of it he has no permit for. I don't care what he does. All I want to do is down here on this southwest corner he has run his fence up to the property line. It's supposed to be, according to whenever I bought it, 30 foot on each side of the property line should be a roadway easement. That was in my, if you look on the bottom of that page there, it gives you a page number for the road easement and everything. Private road and utility easement, book 13-249. That's part of the deal that they, whenever we bought it, each one of you have a plat agreement here. My plat is number 16. His is number 15. Now, number 15, right on the southeast corner there, if you will look, I've got pictures if you want to see them, but that survey shows he's right up on the property line. It was supposed to be back about 30 foot, and he was back behind a tree. He come in there. This is the second or third time he's put in a fence. Every time he moves it a little bit closer to the road. Well, I never noticed all this until I went driving a truck. And you know how a truck driver is. He's home maybe, 1-2 days a month if he's lucky. So I didn't find out all this stuff until I retired. They were doing. On the back of my property, 30 foot over on the property line on the north side. I've had it surveyed. He goes and gets a copy of the survey, don't pay the surveyor nothing. But first of all, he come to me and asked me for money to get a survey with while I was working over the road. I gave him money. So I go back to him and I said, let me see can I have a copy of the survey? He says, I don't know who did it. I don't remember. That's been too long ago. So I went ahead and did it again. I had Henry do it. And they went buddy to buddy again and had that done. Then I went again, had it done here the other day, and went back and called the surveyor before I ever got the report to find out what the results was of it. And the surveyor told me. And he went down and corrected it.
Mr. Macbeth, I hate to interrupt you, but I think maybe you're talking to a group of people who need more information. I would suggest, sir, if you could get with Mr.
What I want to say is I went to permits. And permits, they give me this permit.
I understand, but I think what we need to do is to get you with the staff and let them investigate your complaints, so they'll be able to give us some guidance as to what we need to do. So if you'll get with Mr. Brummett.
I've met with everybody in the country. I've been to.
Have you met with Mr. Brummett yet?
Dan Berman.
Dan Brummett, sir.
Yeah.
And I would suggest.
I went to him, and they've come back with this stuff. They're telling me to put up a fence in the middle of the road, and they're going to need to not get another permit, but keep the permit I got. Now, if I go down there and I put up a fence in the middle of that road, what's going to happen?
Well, Mr. Macbeth, we have a problem here. We can't take any official action on your complaint because it wasn't on the agenda.
You can't on
we can't
the permits.
We can't do that this morning without it being on the agenda. We can get you with staff so that you can resolve the issue and get us some information that we can put on the agenda and have to deal with.
5 years I've fooled with this, and I'm not going to give up.
I appreciate that, Mr.
And I'm not going to give up on getting you to straighten things out because I asked you to do it and told you what it took before whenever he started building this. You asked me, I told you, I said, right now you don't have very much done to move it. And I said, I've only got a lawyer fee of $200. I said, if he pays that and moves the fence back where it belongs, I have no problems with it.
Well, that's great, Mr. Macbeth, and I would suggest that Mr. White probably can help you as well, and the staff certainly can be of some assistance.
Well, he hasn't helped me since.
Well, I think maybe he's aware of this issue in a little bit forcefully now, and perhaps he'll be able to deal with it in a better fashion. I recommend you get with the staff because unfortunately, there's nothing we can do from the horseshoe up here this morning to alleviate your problem.
Well, I went to Dan, I went to Crockett, I went to, what's the other guy, David Ascot, And this is the stuff that they're giving me back, and I can't, this permit is not worth the paper it's wrote on.
And we can't comment on that, but we would suggest that the staff and Mr. White can probably help you get this thing resolved. Thank you very much, Mr. Macbeth. Is there anybody else who would like to address the council this morning? All right, then we are going to adjourn into executive session.